Chapter 339. Go. The sudden imperial edict issued by His Majesty the Imperial Palace directly escalated the entire situation. In just a short span of a day, the situation had developed out of the control of the Heavenly Star Marshal House. Normally, even if Wei Qingfan was half a relative of the Imperial Palace, there were many suspicious points in this incident. However, there were many doubtful points in this matter. As the newly crowned rookie king of the Imperial City, Chu Han had won the championship in the Heaven List Great Tournament and won the honor of 3 consecutive championships for the Sacred Star Empire in the Six Nation Tournament. Just based on this achievement, Chu Han shouldn't have been convicted so hastily, and even sent to the death cell. Obviously, there was a mastermind behind all of this. Chu Han was being pushed to the edge of the storm by this mastermind step by step. Whoosh! With the help of Huang Fuqing, Chu Han successfully escaped from the Tensei Prefecture and headed out of the city. Now, Chu Han also knew that it would be difficult for him to find a place to stay in the capital. The only way was to leave first. He would wait for Huang Fuqing and the Tensei Prefecture to find out the truth as soon as possible and prove his innocence, then he would come back. Chu Han was not a pedantic person. He was not afraid of the rumors that he fled to avoid punishment. After all, even Huang Fuqing had asked him to leave quickly. This was sufficient proof that once he was put on death row, there would be no chance for him to turn over a new leaf. Chu Han moved along the roofs of the buildings in the city. Since most of the residents in the city had gathered in the Tensei Prefecture to watch the show, the streets were much quieter than usual. Moreover, Chu Han had only taken small paths, so he managed to shake off Zhao Bei and Wei Gang's pursuit along the way. However, just as Chu Han crossed a main street, a huge fish scale net fell from the sky without any warning and covered Chu Han's head. Then, a cold and harsh murderous aura came from all directions. Chu Han was shocked. With a flash of white light in his palm, the sharp Luo Sun Luo shone brilliantly. Break! Waving his hand, Chu Han brandished his blade. The unstoppable blade aura was like a fleeting shadow as it directly split the heavenly fish scale net in the middle. Chu Han rapidly flew out and steadily landed on the ground. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Accompanied by the sound of rushing wind, 20 to 30 figures with cold auras appeared around Chu Han. These people were all wearing different kinds of masks. One of them, who was standing on the roof of a 3-story building and wearing a silver mask, was looking down at Chu Han from above. The expression behind the mask was as if he was looking at a dead man. The Royal Secret Team. The cold wind blew over with a bone-chilling coldness. Nearly 30 experts from the dark group surrounded Chu Han in the middle. This kind of scene was just like the fight of a cornered beast. However, Chu Han was not a trapped beast that would be easily captured. He held the black blade in his hand, and his eyes that were as deep as a ray of light directly looked at the silver-masked man. "You have been spying on me recently, haven't you?" As soon as these words came out, a trace of astonishment appeared in the eyes behind the mask. The corners of Chu Han's eyes narrowed. A few days after the end of the Heaven List tournament, he would occasionally catch a wisp of obscure aura in the vicinity. Because the wisp of aura was well hidden, Chu Han could not determine where the other party was hiding. At this moment, it seemed that only the experts from the Royal Secret Team could appear and disappear so mysteriously. Chu Han was almost certain that the wisp of obscure aura originated from the silver-masked man in front of him. "Since you have been spying on me these days, then you naturally know that I did not kill Wei Qingfan." Facing Chu Han's calm and collected demeanor, the silver-masked man did not reply. Instead, he raised his right arm and bent his palm, giving an order to take action. In an instant, the experts of the Imperial family's dark team surrounding Chu Han all exploded with a strong and cold killing intent. Swoosh! More than 20 arm-thick iron chains were like dancing pythons, covering the sky and earth, tearing the air apart as they attacked Chu Han, who was in the middle. The sturdy and cold iron chains flickered with a cold luster, and the front of the iron chains were embedded with sharp hooks and barbs. Humph! Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and an ice-cold, killing intent surged between his brows. The limitless Fang, which was swallowing and spitting dense black radiance, danced in the air, causing the air to tremble violently. A circle of black saber waves was like a flood dragon waving its tail, sweeping up a shocking and furious might, blasting the iron chains that were flying towards him. The chaotic chi burst out wantonly, and the rubble on the ground was splashed up. Then, 4 experts from the dark team charged towards Chu Hen with sharp weapons in their hands, while the others behind them were preparing for the next round of attacks. "Don't put up a futile resistance." A low and disdainful voice came from the mouth of a man wearing a ghost mask. At the same time, the long sword in his hand was pointed towards Chu Hen's chest like an aurora. F***ck off. Chu Hen angrily rebuked, and with a backhand slash, a sharp saber light flashed past, and with a ding sound, the long sword in the man's hand was actually broken into 2 pieces. The man was shocked and quickly retreated. At the same time, the other 3 people's attacks also arrived in front of him. However, Chu Hen did not care, and with a move of his feet, he chased after the man wearing the ghost mask. Swoosh! With a swoosh sound, Chu Hen dragged a string of shadows in the air, and at the same time, he instantly flashed behind the opponent, and at the same time, a bright and beautiful silver crescent saber light like lightning swept across like a shocking dragon. The ghost mask on the man's face suddenly exploded into 2 halves from the middle, and a line of blood quickly overflowed from his face, which was filled with endless fear. The red line of blood directly ran from his forehead to his chin, and then he silently fell to the ground, becoming a corpse. Presumptuous! Seeing that Chu Hen killed an expert of the dark team in 1 move, the others were shocked and angry. And immediately Chu Hen did not have any delay, and with his fastest speed, he rushed towards the experts of the dark team who were preparing to set up a big killing move in the rear area. Die. Chu Hen took the lead and rushed in front of a figure, and a biting cold saber aura burst out, and layers of black saber shadows appeared in the air, slashing towards the person in front of him. A mournful scream followed, and the sharp Sun Luo Fang pierced through the opponent's chest like cutting tofu. A series of blood splattered, and that person became the second dead soul under Chu Hen's saber. Killing 2 people in a row, unstoppable! The silver-masked man on the top of the 3-story building slightly narrowed his eyes, and then said in a low voice, "There is no need to capture him alive, kill him on the spot. There is no need to capture him alive, this is easy." In an instant, the experts of the royal family's dark team all rose up, and in the form of a group battle, they surrounded and attacked Chu Hen. Swish! A sharp wind broke out, and 7 or 8 cold swords pierced towards Chu Hen's back. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he leaped up and flashed into the air. The swift and fierce longsword pierced through thin air, but it caused the space to tremble faintly. Not waiting for Chu Hen to stabilize his body, a few streaks of light and shadows came whistling over. In his haste, Chu Hen did a somersault in midair, narrowly avoiding the attack. However, this was just the beginning. The experts of the royal family's dark team attacked one after another, and continuously launched a fierce attack towards Chu Hen from all directions. Everyone's attacks were vicious, and they were all aimed at killing Chu Hen. They did not have the slightest intention of showing mercy. However, it was precisely this action of wanting to kill Chu Hen that aroused the anger in Chu Hen's heart. Kill! A surging violent chi rose and was released from Chu Hen's body, and in the depths of his cold eyes there was a hidden purple light surging. Then, a strong Reiki energy was released from Chu Hen's Naiwan palace. Dozens of bright runes immediately appeared between his fingers, and then he waved his hand, and the runes were like blooming fireworks, directly with Chu Hen as the center, directly scattered in the area within a radius of more than 30 meters. "Don't go over!" An expert of the dark team shouted loudly. However, there were still 5 or 6 people who could not stop in time, and entered the area where the runes were scattered. Buzz buzz! An extremely huge power fluctuation was like a torrent that was about to break through a dam, and circles of astonishing violent energy burst out from the scattered runes in the air. Chu Hen's cold eyes narrowed slightly, and he made a hand seal with one hand, and spat out a few words coldly from his mouth. Spiritual fire formation. Boom! As his voice fell, a scarlet pillar of fire soared into the sky, comparable to a volcano that erupted in an instant, and a scorching wave of air swept in all directions. The scalding magma-like flames directly spread out, engulfing the experts of the dark team. Terrified screams rang out one after another. 2 of them were seriously injured by the flames, and the other 4 were turned into ashes, not even able to let out a scream. Swish! Then, a powerful blade wave pierced out from the flames, like a black wave, and slashed at the 2 people who were seriously injured by the flames. The 2 of them did not have the slightest bit of defense, and were forcibly cut into 2 balls of blood mist by the blade. Even the experts of the dark team, who had carried out countless difficult missions and walked through many life-and-death situations, were sincerely shocked by Chu Hen's methods at this moment. This young man who was not even 20 years old, his methods were so fierce and cruel. Swish! In the next second, Chu Hen flashed out like a ghost. This time, he did not continue to defend, but took the initiative to attack the people in front of him. Rumble, circles of golden-red illusory flames lingered around Chu Hen's body, and the resplendent illusory flames were like the rings of stars that lingered around the outside of the stars. One of the burly experts of the dark team shouted angrily, and raised the large blade in his hand and slashed towards Chu Hen. "Brat, die for me!" Chapter 340. Clang! Along with a heavy explosive sound, Chu Hen's fist firmly collided with the large blade of an expert from the dark group. The scattered True Yuan power wantonly exploded apart. The body of the expert from the dark group actually trembled and was shaken until he continuously retreated backwards. Chu Hen's seemingly ordinary punch actually contained a terrifying explosive power. The opponent's extremely imposing broadsword was unable to even break through Chu Hen's defense, and there was only a white mark on his fist. What? The expert from the dark team who was wielding a broadsword let out an incredulous cry of surprise. The eyes hidden behind the mask were filled with astonishment. Wasn't this fellow's physical body a little too terrifying? In that exchange just now, it felt as if the broadsword had chopped down on a rock. However, just as he recovered from his shock, a sharp figure had already flashed and arrived. The eyes behind the mask reflected a handsome and resolute face. On that face, a pair of deep eyes faintly flickered with an obscure bewitching purple light. The moment his eyes met Chu Hen's, the heart of the expert from the dark team who was wielding a broadsword suddenly trembled, as if he had received the signal of death in an instant. Hiss! Following that, a sharp blade light flashed, and a round head flew out. A fountain of blood shot out several meters into the air. In the blink of an eye, he had killed 9 of the elites of the Imperial family's dark team. The rest of the people were all greatly shocked. The eyes of the silver-masked man at the top of the 3-story pavilion shot out 2 sharp cold lights. Shwa! In an instant, he directly flew down from the sky, like a goshawk pouncing on its prey. He charged towards Chu Hen. A mountain-like aura poured down. The silver-masked man extended his right hand, transforming into a tiger claw, with the power to tear through the air. He grabbed towards Chu Hen's head. His speed was as fast as lightning. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he fearlessly raised his fist to meet it. The fist wind that was wreathed in the light of the illusory flames collided head-on with the opponent's claw energy. Pung! A heavy explosion sounded, and a circle of incomparably vigorous True Yuan Qi spread out in the air. The airflow in all directions trembled violently, and this time, Chu Hen was sent flying backwards. It smashed into the wall of a house. Boom! Following that, the entire house collapsed with a loud rumble. However, in the next second, Chu Hen crawled out of the pile of rubble. The blood in his body was tumbling, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. I was too careless. This person's cultivation had probably reached the peak of the 9th level of the core transformation realm. He might even have half a foot in the void-piercing realm. However, the silver-masked man was even more surprised than Chu Hen. That strike just now might have seemed sloppy and ordinary, but the other party had been preparing it for a long time and had restrained all of the hidden energy in his palm. According to common sense, it should have been enough to make Chu Hen unable to get up. Who would have thought that his opponent would only suffer a light injury, and his inner chi was in a mess? This made the silver-masked man even more surprised. After the end of the Heavenly List tournament, this kid's strength has increased by quite a lot, the silver-masked man thought to himself. Chu Hen seemed to only be at the 6th level of the core transformation realm, but the strength of his body was even stronger than a 9th level expert. No wonder the Divine Empress wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. This kind of existence, if left alive, would definitely be a huge threat. It must be a good fight. Chu Hen casually wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and a sinister expression appeared on his face. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure moved, and a powerful aura swept up as he attacked the silver-masked man. Today, I will make a stupid dog like you kneel here. Xiao, Chu Hen leaped up, and a monstrous and domineering black light burst out from his body. The surging True Yuan rapidly gathered on the sharp blade of the limitless Fang. With both hands tightly grasping the hilt of the blade, Chu Hen chopped down at his opponent with the force of splitting a mountain. Buzz! An unstoppable black light surged out, and a bitingly cold and terrifying blade power slashed out. Feeling the enormous destructive power contained in Chu Hen's attack, the silver-masked man did not dare to take it head-on. His figure moved, and he dodged to the side. Rumble! The incomparably powerful light was like a torrent that broke through a dam. Crushed all the way down, and the rocks on the ground flew everywhere. The flat street directly split open, and a huge ravine extended at an extremely fast speed. The range of Chu Hen's attack was quite large, and the many experts of the Imperial Dark Team behind him turned pale with fright. One after another, they dodged to the side. However, there were still 2 people with relatively slow reactions, and they could not dodge in time. The powerful light hit them head-on, and their bodies were instantly torn into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere, and broken internal organs scattered on the ground. You? The silver-masked man was both shocked and furious, and he was extremely annoyed. All of these were elite experts that he'd personally trained, yet in just a short moment, 11 of them had been killed by Chu Hen, and it truly caused him to feel great pain. However, before the silver-masked man could flare up, Chu Hen had charged over first and launched a second round of attacks. Stinking kid, you're courting death. The man's killing intent stacked up as his hands held a strand of powerful true essence, and then he pushed out with his palms, causing a vast and surging force from his palms to sweep towards Chu Hen like a landslide. Cold lights surged in Chu Hen's eyes, and the pair of violet light wings unfolded behind him glowed brilliantly. The violet light that was restless to the extreme suffused out and enveloped Chu Hen's body, and it formed the silhouette of a divine bird with oppressive, imposing aura. It was violent to the point it seemed like a ferocious beast that was on the verge of breaking through its shackles. Shadow wing slash. Bang! The swift and fierce shadow wing slash collided fiercely with the opponent's majestic palm force. The heavens and the earth dimmed, and circles of majestic chi waves wantonly swept out. The demonic purple light spread out in all directions, and the buildings within a radius of nearly 100 meters collapsed with a loud bang. Everyone present was greatly shocked, and they saw that Chu Hen relied on his own strength to withstand the full force of the silver-masked man's palm. Along with the violent true essence aftermath, Chu Hen directly broke through the opponent's huge palm force, and a hint of ruthlessness appeared between his extraordinary brows. The space trembled slightly, and a cyan rune suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen. Gale rune. Whoosh, the airflow between heaven and earth became abnormally chaotic, and a gale suddenly rose. The strong airflow that originated from all directions began to press towards the silver-masked man. Chu Hen's cold eyes stared at the opponent, and his lips moved slightly as he coldly spat out a few words. Shadow Moon! The silver-masked man was shocked, and then he coldly snorted and said, "Humph, with just your little ability, you want to trap me?" Thunder Net Shield. Chi-chi in an instant, a dazzling silver lightning power immediately erupted from the man's body, and the crisscrossing lightning net instantly formed a lightning ball that was more than 2 meters in diameter, forming an all-round defense shield. Previously, in the Earth List battle, the man had seen Chu Hen perform the Shadow Moon dance, using the speed of the saber and the speed of the movement. He specifically attacked the opponent's weakest point. Although this kind of saber technique was extremely difficult to deal with, it was not impossible to break. The most effective way to break it was to restrict Chu Hen's movement, so that he could not complete the saber in a very short time. However, at this moment, a mocking smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. What an idiot! What? The silver-masked man could not help but be shocked. He saw that Chu Hen did not use the move of the Shadow Moon dance. Instead, he held the limitless Fang with both hands and lowered the saber to his chest. Then, he pushed out with both hands, and the sharp black saber stabbed towards the opponent like a sharp sword. He was tricked. Chu Hen had no intention of using the Shadow Moon dance at all. The reason why he made that kind of attack was to make the opponent disperse the originally concentrated defense to the whole body. In this way, the frontal defense would definitely be weakened. Chi-chi, the limitless Fang, which was flickering with active black and purple light, dragged a series of saber shadows in the air, and then steadily pierced through the layer of lightning net. The extremely restless lightning scuttled up the saber like a silver snake, and extended towards Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen did not care. He gritted his teeth and stabbed the limitless Fang into the opponent's abdomen. Hiss, a bright red flower of blood floated like raindrops, and the rapid airflow filled the sky. Chu Hen's ice-cold eyes surged with a cold sharpness. Humph, the royal family's dark team is only SOSO. A sharp pain spread from his abdomen, and the eyes behind the silver mask were filled with deep shock and disbelief. Ever since he joined the royal family's dark team, he had carried out countless dangerous missions, and had countless experiences of brushing shoulders with death, but today, it was just a simple capture mission, and it was a crushing defeat. Leader! The rest of the experts from the dark team were shocked, and without saying anything, they all launched a fierce attack. Colorful rays of light flew towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he quickly pulled out the limitless Fang from the opponent's abdomen. Then, he kicked the opponent's wound heavily, and at the same time, he used the recoil to dodge backward. Boom! Bang! A series of forces collided in the air, setting off waves of chaotic aftershocks. The silver-masked man directly smashed into a building, causing rocks to swirl in the air. More than half of the building collapsed. "I'll return it to you." Chu Hen coldly smiled. At this moment, the fight seemed to have attracted the attention of other places. "Chu Hen, that little thief is over there. Don't let him escape." Many powerful figures quickly rushed over, and the commander of the Imperial Guards, Zhao Bei, and the Wei family's patriarch, Wei Gang, were among them. Chapter 341. Don't let that little thief Chu Hen get away. He's over there, go after him. Very soon, the Imperial Guards led by Zhao Bei and the Wei family's patriarch, Wei Gang, led many experts over. When they saw the chaotic scene of the battle just now, everyone was stunned. The Dark Team? Seeing Zhao Bei, Wei Gang, and the others, the members of the Dark Team were especially embarrassed. As the Imperial family's strongest elite team, they were utterly defeated by Chu Hen alone. It was really embarrassing. Fortunately, everyone was wearing a mask, which covered them a little. Go after him. Everyone didn't stay here for long and directly chased in the direction that Chu Hen escaped. The whole city was in chaos, and all kinds of people began to anxiously capture Chu Hen. "Little thief Chu Hen, let's see where you can run to." Suddenly, a sinister figure scuttled out from a deep alley below and blocked Chu Hen's path. Meddlesome! Chu Hen's face turned cold. Not only did he not stop, but he also suddenly accelerated. The limitless Fong dragged a bright crescent shadow in the air, and Chu Hen instantly arrived behind that person. Along with a painful scream, the sinister figure's eyes widened, and a knife wound that reached straight to his heart appeared on his chest. Scarlet blood quickly spurted out, and that person powerlessly fell from midair. However, the moment after Chu Hen finished killing that person, another person jumped out to block his way. "Little thief Chu Hen, you can't escape even if you have wings. Why don't you give me your head so that I can get a reward from the Wei family's patriarch?" Along with frivolous words, that person slashed at Chu Hen with his long sword. Chu Hen raised his handsome eyebrows and dodged sideways, easily dodging the other party's attack. "Heh, I didn't know that killing me could get a reward?" Patriarch Wei, you should at least show some courtesy. Instead of receiving your reward from Wei Gang, it's better to receive it from me. I'll give you a saber strike, take it." Just as he finished speaking, Chu Hen's body erupted with a powerful hidden force. With a flick of his wrist, he swung his saber. A piercingly cold black saber light extended along the blade of Limitless Fong for more than 10 meters. The peerlessly domineering saber shadow slashed down, stirring up a thick aura of death, and landed on the figure holding the sword. The latter turned pale with fright, and his face immediately turned pale. Bang! Chu Hen's saber had cleaved his opponent into two halves. Red and white liquid and broken internal organs were thrown out wantonly. Chu Hen showed no mercy at all. In the process of escaping, there were constantly people who tried to block their way. Chu Hen slaughtered his way out with unstoppable momentum, creating a path of blood. However, Zhao Bei, Wei Gang, and the others were getting closer and closer. The distance between them was rapidly shrinking. Chu Hen was secretly alarmed. If this continued, it would be troublesome. Previously, he had been heading out of the city, but now, he had unknowingly been chased into the central part of the city. A river appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. "This is the only way." Chu Hen's eyes lit up. Without saying anything else, he directly flew to the sky above the crossing city river. Then, without any hesitation, he dived into the river. "Little bastard, where do you think you're going?" Wei Gang, who had already caught up, was furious. A monstrous and powerful aura erupted from his body, and a dazzling golden radiance swept out in all directions like the sun. At this moment, Wei Gang seemed to have transformed into a sun from the 9 heavens, emitting a terrifying and destructive aura that sent chills down one's spine. Heavenly Sun Illusory Annihilation Fist. Accompanied by Wei Gang's angry roar, he blasted his fist toward the river below. In an instant, tens of thousands of incomparably dazzling golden rays poured down, all hitting the river below. Boom! Bang! Layers upon layers of shocking waves soared into the sky, and the river within a radius of 1 to 200 meters exploded. The extremely penetrating golden rays were like 10,000 arrows shot at the same time, and the terrifying impact caused the river below to churn like a tidal wave. It was as chaotic as a tsunami, constantly causing violent turbulence. The people behind him were all shocked by Wei Gang's astonishing aura, and none of them dared to approach him. "Chu Hen, you little thief, get out here!" Wei Gang blasted out punch after punch, and slashed out palm after palm. The river was churning, and huge waves blotted out the sky and covered the earth, scattering in all directions. The originally clear river water had become extremely turbid. However, the continuous indiscriminate bombardment was unable to force Chu Hen out of the water. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the splashing waves on the surface of the water. After half a cup of tea's time, no one came out. "Where is he?" "He couldn't have been blasted into pieces by Wei family's master, right?" Even so, there should still be blood floating out. The river below the city connects the eastern and southern districts. That little thief can't have gone far. Commander of the Imperial Guards Zhao Bei's eyes were cold as he shouted in a low voice, split into two teams. One team will search the eastern district, and the other will search the southern district. We must capture that little thief Chu Hen and bring him to justice. Yes. Immediately, everyone quickly followed the city through the river toward the eastern and southern districts. Once again, Chu Hen had slipped away from under his nose. Wei Gang was burning with rage, and his face was incomparably gloomy and ashen. Family head, please don't be angry. Even if that little bastard doesn't die, he'll definitely be heavily injured. As long as he's in the capital, we'll definitely drag him out and pay with our lives, even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. One of the Wei family elders spoke up. Wei Gang clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles creaked. Search the entire city. Pass down my order. Whoever can capture that little thief Chu Hen will be satisfied with anything that our Wei family can offer. In order to capture Chu Hen, Wei Gang had really spared no expense. For the rest of the day, the entire capital descended into chaos. Imperial guards could be seen patrolling the streets and alleys. The various gates and exits of the capital were heavily guarded, and many more troops had been deployed. Anyone who left the city was strictly investigated, as if they were pursuing the most heinous criminals. While the Imperial Guards, Southern Prince residents, and Wei family hunted down Chu Hen, all the instructors and students in Tensei Prefecture were mobilized. They were also secretly searching for Chu Hen's whereabouts. Although they were going against the Imperial family, the upper echelons of Tensei Prefecture could not just watch as Chu Hen became the target of public criticism. The only thing they could do was to find a way to send Chu Hen away before he fell into the hands of the Imperial family. And so, 3 days passed. It was as if Chu Hen had disappeared. No matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find a trace of him. Chapter 342. Under the twilight, the Qi God Mountain was shrouded in a peaceful sunset glow. Towering mountains and lofty ridges were surrounded by clouds and mist. Dense spiritual energy filled the undulating mountain range. It was picturesque, like a paradise on earth. This place was far away from the mundane world. It was a rare place to cultivate in seclusion in the sacred Star Dynasty. On the central peak of the Qi Shin Mountain, there was a majestic Dao platform. There was a person sitting on the platform. It was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man who looked very pleasing to the eye. His gentle and refined temperament was revealed from between his brows. His eyes seemed to be able to see through the good and evil of the world. He quietly stared at the chess game in front of him. He played the game alone, controlling the black and white pieces. Although it was a chess game for one person, the middle-aged man did not seem to feel bored. The black and white pieces were all within his control. At this moment, a faint sound of footsteps could be heard. There was a slight ripple in the middle-aged man's eyes. The footsteps were getting closer, coming from the foot of the mountain. Each step on the bluestone steps was steady and powerful. Then, a figure dressed in black appeared at this place. It was a tall figure. Although his aura was restrained, there was still a heroic aura between his brows. The man in black stopped and did not speak. A cool mountain breeze blew, but there was an indescribable coldness. Clack, the gentle man sitting on the platform placed the last chess piece. The 2 chess pieces fought, and in the end, the white piece won against the black piece. He slowly raised his head and looked at the man in black. Then, a gentle smile appeared on his face. 10 years is really like a day. It seems that the peaceful days are coming to an end. The imperial capital. For several days, the entire city was in turmoil. The imperial family, the South Prince's residence, the Wei family, and other major forces quickly surrounded and captured Chu Hen. Who would have thought that in less than a month, the Sky List champion Chu Hen would become a felon that was being hunted by the entire city? The dazzling halo faded a little too quickly. The development and direction of the matter was completely out of everyone's control. Night. The night of the imperial city was still bright and bustling with activity. However, compared to before, he was clearly much more solemn and nervous. 3 days ago, by the river where Chu Hen disappeared, the riverbank, which was usually bustling at night, had become deserted. At a glance, he could only see a few drunkards or their partners. The weeping willow on the shore swayed its slender branches and leaves in the wind. Under the dim light of the night, it looked like the messy hair of a demon. A tall and graceful figure stood quietly under the willow tree by the riverbank. Her eyes were filled with helplessness as she gazed at the lake, giving off a different kind of faint melancholy. Just then, a cool breeze came from behind her. Huang Fuqing's beautiful eyes lifted as her eyebrows relaxed. She hurriedly turned around, only to see a blurry black figure under a willow tree not far away. Chu! A hint of surprise appeared on her beautiful face as she walked towards the black figure. When Huang Fuqing walked in front of him, the black figure raised his head and revealed a slightly pale but handsome face. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Chu Hen answered calmly. "Where have you been hiding these days?" "In the water." When Chu Hen escaped to this place, he directly jumped into the river. Other people only thought that he had borrowed the underwater passage of the city crossing river to escape to the eastern and southern city districts, but Chu Hen had done the exact opposite. He stayed in the same place and used the rune technique water restraining spell to obtain oxygen, staying in the water. Looking at Chu Hen, who was in a mess, Huang Fuqing felt guilty. "I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with you. I will definitely help you find the murderer. I have already guessed who the murderer is." "What?" Huang Fuliang. Chu Hen's eyes were filled with coldness. He said, "I really can't think of anyone else except him. The silver-masked member of the Dark Team is a witness. I purposely left him alive. If you can, start with him." "The silver-masked member of the Dark Team? It's him." Huang Fuqing's expression changed. She unconsciously clenched her fists and frowned. Chu Hen saw the change in her expression and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "He is the Divine Queen's henchman." Her voice was calm, but it was filled with helplessness. "The Divine Queen?" Chu Hen's eyes became colder and colder. "The biggest culprit behind the scenes is indeed her." At this point, Chu Hen had more or less figured out what was going on. The reason why things had developed to this point in just a few days was not because of how sensational Wei Qingfan's death was. The one who caused all of this was the person behind the scenes who added fuel to the flames. The reason why Huang Fuliang killed Wei Qingfan was because he wanted to frame Chu Hen. However, the Divine Queen knew the truth, but she didn't turn a blind eye to it. Instead, she took advantage of this opportunity to eliminate Chu Hen. I really admire Huang Fuliang more and more. I didn't expect him to be able to predict this. Killing intent surged in Chu Hen's eyes. If Prince Nan hadn't stopped him in the Heaven List tournament, Huang Fuliang would have been killed by his saber. I really don't dare to compliment your royal family's actions. No wonder Uncle Jean told me since I was young that being with the Emperor is like being with a tiger. I shouldn't get involved in politics. Chu Hen's words were filled with sarcasm. Huang Fuqing bit her red lips with her teeth, her eyes almost dripping with tears. What Chu Hen said was no different from scolding her as well. "Chu Hen, tell me the truth. Did you secretly read the Sacred Star Heavenly Book?" "What's the point of saying this now?" Chu Hen coldly retorted. "Now that things have developed to this point, you know it better than me. The imperial family simply cannot tolerate me, because I made your imperial family lose face in the Heaven List Great Battle. The one who won the championship was not someone from your imperial family." Huang Fuqing's body trembled slightly. Her face was pale. Indeed, she knew it better than anyone else. From the moment the Divine Queen suspected that Chu Hen had peeked at the Sacred Star Heavenly Book, she had been on guard against Chu Hen. What was royal power? The so-called imperial power was supreme, and only one family reigned supreme. Anyone who threatened the imperial power or peeped into the secrets of the imperial family was absolutely not allowed to enter. For example, the secrets of the sacred star heavenly book could only be enjoyed by the royal family. Outsiders couldn't peek at it. That was royal power. Chu Hen's performance in the Heaven List tournament had shocked everyone. Although he had won the championship 3 times in a row for the Sacred Star Dynasty, he had also destroyed one of Huang Fuyang's arms, which was a slap to the royal family's face. That was something the royal family wouldn't allow to happen. Because the royal family was supreme. Anyone who dared to challenge the royal family would have to pay the price. However, Chu Hen had overestimated the breadth of the royal family. He had thought that he would be ostracized in the capital, but he didn't expect the royal family to eliminate him in this way. He didn't expect things to happen so fast. It had only been less than a month since the Heaven List tournament ended, and something unexpected had happened. This was where Chu Hen had misjudged. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that about you." Looking at Huang Fuqing's wronged face, Chu Hen's tone softened a little. He knew that Huang Fuqing had been helping him. The Divine Queen was the real ruler of the royal family. As for Huang Fu Hao and Princess Huang Fuqing, they were just decorations. Hearing Chu Hen's apology, Huang Fuqing felt even worse. She let out a long breath and said in a low voice, "Let me take you out of here first." Chu Hen smiled and didn't say anything. However, at this moment, a few figures hurriedly walked across the street in the distance. They were mumbling something as they walked. "TSK, this is too much, too much." "What now?" "The royal family just issued 2 edicts. One of them said that anyone who sees Chu Hen is to be killed without mercy." "What else?" "Long Qingyang and Long Xuanshuang are both under house arrest. Even the people in Tensei Prefecture who are on good terms with Chu Hen are under house arrest. As long as Chu Hen doesn't show up, they will be under house arrest." Damn, the royal family is too cruel. No matter what, Chu Hen's merits outweigh his faults. He doesn't deserve to be sentenced to death. Don't talk about it, don't talk about it. Let's go back. The capital won't be peaceful in the near future. Although the voices of those few people were soft, Chu Hen could hear them clearly. Huang Fuqing paled again, her eyes trembling as she looked at his frosty face. "Chu Hen, leave first. I will help you get Long Qingyang and Long Xuanshuang out of here. Trust me." At this moment, her elegant and refined face was filled with panic. She tried to calm Chu Hen down. Chu Hen's face was cold and fierce, his flames of anger ready to break through this last barrier at any moment. "Xia Qing." Chu Hen looked her straight in the eye and said solemnly, "I need you to do me a favor. Send someone to Qishan Mountain and find someone called Li Wushang." Li Wushang. For some reason, he was the first person that came to Chu Hen's mind. That mysterious man with purple eyes, just like him. Chu Hen didn't know if Li Wushang could help him get through this, but he couldn't think of any other way. "All right, I'll go now." Huang Fuqing nodded. "You can't go. Go to Tensei Prefecture immediately and ask Principal Jiang to send someone. Long Qingyang and Long Xuanshuang were both under house arrest. If something happened and Huang Fuqing wasn't in the capital, he would be helpless. Therefore, Huang Fuqing had to stay in the capital. Similarly, Chu Hen couldn't leave alone. Chapter 343. In the imperial capital, the entire city was still shrouded in a tense atmosphere, the imperial city. Huang Fu Hao, who was flipping through a book, was so startled by the sudden opening of the door that he dropped the book to the ground. Imperial sister, Huang Fu Hao nervously looked at Huang Fuqing, who had not returned to the imperial palace for several days. The latter's face was as cold as ice and her eyes were slightly red. This was the first time in recent years that Huang Fu Hao had seen her in such a daze. "Imperial sister, I'm sorry." Huang Fu Hao pursed his lips and swallowed. "I didn't want to issue those 3 edicts. I had no choice. Looking at the powerless Huang Fu Hao, her eyes revealed an indescribable helplessness and sadness. Perhaps you really shouldn't be the emperor. Imperial sister, without waiting for the man to finish, Huang Fu Qing left the room and disappeared into the night. Outside the Divine Empress's palace. Your Highness, the Divine Empress is already resting. If there's anything, please come back tomorrow. The fiend duo, who were standing guard outside the palace, blocked Huang Fu Qing's way. I have an important matter to discuss with my mother, Huang Fu Qing coldly said. Your Highness, this is the Divine Empress's order. No one is to be summoned during the night. The skinny old monster Ying replied indifferently. There was no respect for Huang Fu Qing in his tone at all. I told you to get out of the way. Your Highness, could it be that you want to force your way in? Old Monster Ying's eyes were slightly cold, revealing a chilling intent. On the other side, Old Monster Hu proudly said, Your Highness, I know that you are extremely talented and have a powerful cultivation, but in front of us two monsters, you are still a little immature. I hope that Your Highness can understand us. If we disturb the Divine Empress's rest, I'm afraid that no one will be able to bear the responsibility. These words were filled with threats. Huang Fu Qing was so angry that her face paled, but she could do nothing about the fiend duo's strength. She could only let it go. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. The search team in the capital was still guarding every pass in the city day and night. No matter who it was at the 4 city gates, they would have to go through extremely strict checks. However, it was as if Chu Hen had disappeared. No trace of him could be found at all. On the 5th day after the imperial family issued the order to hunt down and kill Chu Hen, another shocking piece of news spread throughout the imperial city. Your Divine Majesty, this subordinate has something to report. Speak. Reporting to the Divine Empress, Long Zhan of the General's estate of Raging Rain City requests an audience outside the imperial city. Long Zhan? The Divine Empress stood up from her seat behind the bead curtain and said thoughtfully, Humph, it seems that even the heavens don't want to let that treacherous thing, Chu Hen, escape. That Long Zhan has come at the right time. Your Divine Majesty, should we summon Long Zhan into the palace? No, the Divine Empress rejected the idea without the slightest hesitation. She opened her mouth and said, Have Long Zhan stand outside the imperial palace and have the imperial guard stand guard. Also have His Majesty issue an imperial decree. 3 days from now, this Empress will personally accompany His Majesty in judging Long Zhan's family for the crime of rebellion. Yes, Your Divine Majesty. The arrival of Long Zhan of Raging Rain City once more caused quite a stir in the capital. In the past, few people would have known who Long Zhan was. But now, everyone knew that Long Zhan was Chu Hen's adoptive father. He was also Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang's father. Many people standing on Chu Hen's side felt helpless about Long Zhan's appearance at this time. The matter had already been chaotic enough, and now that Long Zhan had come, it gave the imperial clan a bargaining chip to threaten Chu Hen. Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang were already under house arrest. With the addition of Long Zhan, they were clearly trying to force Chu Hen out. In addition, over at Tifeng Province, Elder Sister, let me out. I want to find Big Brother Chu Hen. The tables, chairs, and teacups in the room had all been thrown into disorder by her. For the past few days, she had been crying and throwing a tantrum, unable to rest for even a moment. As for Yi Yu, who had been watching over her, she had also been mentally and physically exhausted by her antics. So what if you find him? Are you going to die with him? Yi Yu coldly replied. Yes, I'm going to die with him. Yi Yao unhesitatingly blurted out. What did you say? I said that I'd rather die with Big Brother Chu Hen than to drag out an ignoble existence. If it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have gone to Wei Qingfan's place. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been the one to blame for this. Yi Yao's teary eyes were filled with heart-wrenching sadness. She looked at Yi Yu, no longer feeling as dependent as before. She choked out, You didn't cherish that man, but I don't want to give up on him. You didn't cherish that man, but I don't want to give up on him. When she heard this, Yi Yu's body trembled uncontrollably. Her eyes were filled with surprise. Her usually obedient younger sister had actually said such things to her. With that, Yi Yao ignored the dazed Yi Yu and ran out of the room with hot tears in her eyes. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. A vast square had been set up at the main entrance of the imperial city. Imperial guards armed with long spears and wearing heavy armor were scattered around the palace gate. The enormous palace door was open, and it was luxurious, dignified, and tall, displaying a majestic and dignified aura. The gate of the imperial palace looked like another majestic city gate. At this moment, the area around the palace gate was already filled with people. Many students and teachers from Tensei Prefecture were nervously looking around, trying to find that familiar figure in the crowd. In the center of the square, surrounded by the imperial guards, stood a middle-aged man. The man was tall and had a steady aura. Between his brows, he exuded an innate heroic spirit. For 3 days, Long Zhan had been standing there, not drinking a drop of water or eating a grain of rice. However, his eyes were bright like torches. Your Majesty, the Divine Empress, and the Princess have arrived at this moment, accompanied by a loud and clear voice. Huang Fu Hao, Huang Fu Qing, and the Divine Empress climbed up the grand palace wall, accompanied by a group of guards and maids. The Divine Empress was still guarded by the fiend duo. In comparison, Huang Fu Hao's side only had a few armed guards. This commoner, Long Zhan, kowtows in salute to Your Majesty, the Divine Empress, and the Princess. Long Zhan waved his sleeves, then knelt on both knees and kowtowed. Humph! The Divine Empress sneered. She looked down at Long Zhan and said, Long Zhan, you really have guts. The son you taught is actually a traitor who rebelled against his superiors. With that, the guards brought Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang here. Father, why are you here? Long Qingyang and his sister, who had been under house arrest all this time, did not know that Long Zhan had come to the imperial city. Now that father and daughter had met again, under such circumstances, it made one sigh. Several guards held their spears in front of the two of them, preventing them from taking a step forward. As he looked at his children, Long Zhan's face showed a hint of warmth. Yang Shuang father is here. Leave it to me. Father, you shouldn't have come. Long Qingyang frowned, his eyes filled with helplessness. Long Xuanxuang, who was always as cold as ice, had a helpless expression on her face. Long Zhan shook his head, then stood up and said sternly, Of my 3 children, 2 have been imprisoned for no reason, and 1 is being pursued throughout the city. As a father, what reason do I have not to come? How dare you, Long Zhan? I haven't even allowed you to rise. The Holy Empress coldly stared at Long Zhan and said with a hint of anger in her tone, Your father, General Long Bo, was a famous general of this dynasty. Do you still remember Long Bo's military slogan? Of course, Long Zhan remembers. Loyalty, righteousness, bravery. Loyalty, righteousness, bravery, bravery. How dare your Long family talk about loyalty in front of me after committing such a shameful act? Let me ask you, Long Zhan, do you have the face to stand under the feet of the Son of Heaven? The Divine Empress's face was full of disdain and mockery. Not far away, Huang Fu Hao and Huang Fu Qing could not even get a word in edgewise. It was clear that the Divine Empress intended for her to handle this matter personally. In the face of the Divine Empress' harsh words, Long Zhan remained unmoved. He took a step forward and said, My old father has been on the battlefield for many years, leaving behind a loyal heart, a righteous courage. I am indebted to the late Emperor's love, allowing the old man's reputation to be passed down for generations to come. However, Long Zhan is only a first-rank weed. Today, I only came here with the identity of a father. I only want to ask Your Majesty and the Divine Empress to return my son Chu Hen's innocence. Long Jean's words were powerful and resonant. Countless people present couldn't help but be moved by this. The Divine Empress, however, did not seem to care. Long Jean, you keep saying that Chu Hen was wrongly accused. Then I would like to ask, where is he now? If he was wrongly accused, why don't you dare to come out? Chu Hen is here. Just as the Divine Empress finished speaking, a cold voice came from the back of the crowd. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The crowd quickly parted, and a young man with a sharp aura gradually walked out from the back. The surrounding disciples of the Heavenly Star Martial House frowned, their faces filled with worry. On the palace wall, Huang Fuqing clenched her fists and bit her lips. Her eyes were full of complicated emotions. Chapter 344. In the end, Chu Hen still came. When they saw Chu Hen, who seemed to have disappeared from the world for several days, everyone present had different emotions. After a few days of not seeing each other, the youth before them seemed to have slimmed down a little. His resolute features were more distinct, and his deep eyes were as resplendent as the stars. Hua! Immediately after, a dozen Imperial Army guards wielding sharp weapons stepped forward and surrounded Chu Hen. Chu Hen looked at Long Jean in front of him, his eyes filled with guilt and shame. Uncle Jean, Chu Hen is unfilial and has caused you trouble. After not seeing each other for more than a year, there was an indescribable sadness in the reunion of these two, who were not father and son, but were definitely not inferior to any father and son. When they met again, Chu Hen could not help but discover that the tall and handsome Long Jean did not seem to be as burly as before. Henner, you have grown a lot taller. After not seeing you for so long, Uncle Jean misses you very much. Ha 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 ha. Hearty laughter came from Long Jean's mouth. It was a feeling of happiness and carefreeness from the bottom of his heart. Even under such circumstances, this man called Long Jean still had his own pride. Take down the traitor Chu Hen. Commander Zhao Bei of the Imperial Army shouted. Yes. Several guards immediately went up and pressed down on Chu Hen's shoulders as they fiercely reprimanded him. Kneel. Chu Hen frowned. Because Long Jean was here, he did not resist. However, his knees did not bend, and his body was as straight as a javelin. Kneel, do you hear me? Two guards kicked at Chu Hen's knees, intending to force him to the ground. However, Chu Hen still did not waver, and his posture was straight as a ramrod. The people of Tensei Prefecture, who were watching from afar, were furious. This was too much. Enough! Huang Fuqing couldn't help but coldly shout from above the city wall. The guards holding Chu Hen turned their gazes to Commander Zhao Bei. The latter raised his head and glanced at the Divine Empress above the city gate. Seeing that her expression was calm and without any signs of displeasure, Zhao Bei immediately waved his hand, indicating for the two to stop attacking Chu Hen. Long Jean. The Divine Empress stared coldly at the Long family members and said, What else do you have to say? Without waiting for Long Jean to speak, Chu Hen shouted in a deep voice, I will bear the consequences of my own actions. The crimes that I, Chu Hen, have committed have nothing to do with my family. Well done, you'll have to bear the consequences of your own actions. You've openly committed murder in the imperial capital and flouted the law. Men, throw Chu Hen into the death row for me and await his punishment. The Divine Empress shouted coldly. Wait. Long Jean raised his hand and said in a loud and powerful voice, Divine Empress, Your Majesty, please state clearly, what crime has Chu Hen committed? What crime has he committed? Putting aside the matter of him killing Wei Qinfan for the moment, several days ago, he fled to escape punishment and killed 10-odd elites of the imperial household's hidden troops. Based on this crime alone, he cannot escape death. A cold wind blew past them. At this moment, anyone could clearly understand that the Divine Empress would definitely not let Chu Hen off today. Long Jean raised his thick eyebrows and his pair of calm eyes revealed a decisive look. Divine Empress, Your Majesty, it is said that it is the father's fault to raise but not to teach. As Chu Hen's adoptive father, I failed to strictly discipline him, resulting in today's situation. I, Long Zhan, am willing to bear all of Chu Hen's crimes. I hope that your majesty will be merciful and spare Chu Hen's life. What? As soon as these words came out, everyone present was shocked. Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang instantly paled, their eyes surging with panic. No, Uncle Zhan. Chu Hen was even more furious, his emotions abnormally restless. Several guards tightly gripped Chu Hen's shoulders and arms, preventing him from moving. Uncle Zhan, this matter has nothing to do with you. There's no need for you to bear it for me. Long Zhan's tone was warm, his eyes filled with love. Since you were young, Uncle Zhan has never been able to do anything for you. Even when I learned that your martial vein had been crippled and the tendons of your arms and legs severed, I could only watch helplessly. If I, Long Zhan, can exchange for your safety, what is a trifling life? No, no. Chu Hen shook his head, his heart filled with unprecedented anxiety and panic. Then, Long Zhan's eyes focused on the Divine Empress and His Majesty on the wall, and he said righteously, I hope that your Majesty and your Majesty will grant my request. Huang Fu Hao said nothing, only looking at the Divine Empress. The Divine Empress said coldly, Fine, in consideration of old General Long Bo's countless contributions on the battlefield for this dynasty, this Empress is willing to give you a chance. Since you, Long Zhan, are willing to bear all of his crimes, this Empress can spare his life. I hope that your Majesty will keep your promise. When has this Empress ever lied? Fine. Long Zhan's aura surged and he took a step forward, a valiant and powerful aura spreading in all directions. The wind howled and air currents gathered. Then, Long Zhan raised his right arm and pointed his index finger at the sky. His thunderous voice shook everyone's eardrums. Today, your Majesty, in front of everyone here, has personally promised me that as Long Zhan is dead, you will spare Chu Hen's life. If, his voice paused and he changed the topic, if your Majesty goes back on your word, I, Long Zhan, will ensure that my heroic soul remains in this world to protect my son. My heroic soul shall not be extinguished and shall remain in this world to ensure the safety of my son. In an instant, everyone present was shocked by Long Zhan's bold and magnificent words. Then, Long Zhan's gaze swept over Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and Chu Hen. His valiant eyes were filled with love and hope. Yang Shuang Hen, the three of you are the greatest pride of Long Zhan's life. As a father, I have no regrets in doing this. No, don't. Long Qingyang's teeth chattered, his eyes pleading. Father, don't. Long Xuanxuang, who had always been strong, had tears in her eyes. She had completely let go of her usual iciness and shouted weakly, I will never forgive you. You have no regrets, but I do. Uncle Zhan, I beg you, don't die for me. Chu Hen's eyes were red. He had never been so afraid before. Uncle Zhan, I beg you, but Long Zhan's face revealed a warm and comforting smile. Don't be sad. Your father will always be here. No matter where I am, I will always watch you grow. The air seemed to become abnormally quiet. Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and Chu Hen all stared with wide eyes, their minds trembling as they struggled to break free from the guard's control. However, at this time, Long Zhan waved his hand at the three of them. His gentle voice and smile made them feel comfortable. Remember, your father will always be here for the three of you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Those 3 words were as light as a feather, but they struck Chu Hen, Long Qingyang, and Long Xuanxuang like a bolt of lightning. His loving smile was like a sharp knife that pierced straight into their hearts. Boom! In the next moment, a powerful aura erupted from Long Zhan's body. A ball of scorching red flames shot into the sky and enveloped Long Zhan within it. Deep sorrow, solemnity, and boundless heroism swept through the entire area. No, Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang were hysterical, their eyes wide open in shock. The merciless crimson flames directly engulfed Long Zhan. Long Jean didn't resist in the slightest and allowed the flames to engulf every inch of his body. Chu Hen felt as if a knife was twisting in his heart. His knees gave out as he knelt on the ground. 2 streams of hot tears rolled down his cheeks as Chu Hen looked up to the sky and howled, "Uncle Jean!" The bleak and cold wind blew past. Long Jean's body turned into ashes in the merciless flames. His ashes danced in the wind like the dust of heaven and earth. Every speck of dust was the greatest pain for Chu Hen and the rest. At that moment, everyone watching from afar was stunned. Looking at the trembling Chu Hen kneeling on the ground, the people of Tensei Prefecture felt a deep sense of helplessness and sorrow. Everyone was especially shocked in their hearts. This Long Jean could be considered as a great hero who could support the heavens and the earth. On the city walls, the Divine Empress looked at the scene coldly and shouted, "Men, here! Take down Chu Hen the traitor!" Yes. What? Everyone was shocked once again. Huang Fuqing's beautiful eyes widened, and she shouted coldly, "Mother? Long Jean is dead. How can you go back on your words?" "Humph, I only said that I would spare his life. I didn't say that he would be absolved of his crimes. He can be spared from death, but he must be punished. Destroy Chu Hen the traitor's cultivation and throw him into the dungeon for life." Boom! The Divine Empress's words were like a bolt from the blue exploding in the air above everyone's heads. He could be spared from death, but he must be punished. Didn't this mean that Long Jean died for nothing? Once his cultivation was destroyed, he would be imprisoned in the dungeon for life. What was the difference between that and death? "Mother!" Huang Fuqing was both shocked and angry. "Shut up! Whoever dares to plead for that traitor will be punished severely." The Divine Empress was determined to get rid of Chu Hen. At the same time, she was telling everyone in the world that the imperial power was supreme in the Sacred Star Dynasty. No matter who it was, those who dared to offend the imperial power would not have a good ending. Once the order was given, several guards armed with weapons once again surrounded Chu Hen in the middle. "Ha ha ha ha!" But at this moment Chu Hen laughed. He laughed almost crazily. His tear-stained face was so gloomy that it even looked a little ferocious. That pair of ice-cold eyes suddenly exploded with monstrous, killing intent. "Bitch, I will kill you today!" Boom! In the next moment, Chu Hen burst out in rage and stood up from the ground. A terrifying and furious aura soared into the sky. Boundless and berserk energy rippled like a mountain torrent that had erupted in an instant. A circle of vigorous air waves bloomed from Chu Hen's body. Bang, bang, bang! After a series of muffled bangs, the guards who were charging at Chu Hen were all smashed into clouds of blood mist. Everyone present turned pale with fright. The sky was dark and the earth was dark. Thunder and lightning intertwined. A thick black light and a demonic purple light were released from Chu Hen's body. Following that, the enormous power of the stars that was suppressed in his Dantian's sea of energy was like a raging tsunami. It completely broke through the shackles of the seal and completely exploded. The wind was raging and the clouds were scudding. With Chu Hen as the center, deep and dark cracks spread out on the ground. Inch by inch, the broken bricks were like a flock of startled moths. At this moment, Chu Hen was furious like a ferocious beast. His long hair fluttered and his clothes fluttered. A resplendent silver light bloomed from Chu Hen's body. The terrifying pressure shocked everyone present. "Is it the power of the 7 stars? Oh my God!" He actually obtained the power of the 7 stars. Everyone present was shocked when they saw Chu Hen erupt with a resplendent silver sacred radiance. The extremely terrifying energy was just like a volcano that had been suppressed for a long time. The violent energy filled every inch of Chu Hen's muscles, bones, skin, and flesh. Buzz! A silver light beam enveloped Chu Hen as it soared into the sky. The mighty purple light beam and the black light beam intertwined with each other as they rose into the sky. Under thousands of eyes that were filled with disbelief, Chu Hen's aura increased exponentially. He broke through the 7th level of the core transformation realm, then the 8th level. It was as if he broke through layers of shackles and broke through the shackles of the heavens. Like a tsunami, he stepped into the 9th level of the core transformation realm. In the blink of an eye, he broke through 3 levels. Everyone present was extremely shocked. Then, Chu Hen's aura continued to rise explosively. The Yuan Dan in his Dantian's Qi rapidly revolved. Everyone could clearly feel the uneasiness of the Yuan Dan in his body, as if it could split open at any time. What are you waiting for? Capture the traitor. The Divine Empress's face was covered in frost. Now that she had confirmed that Chu Hen had peeked into the secret of the Sacred Star Heavenly Book, it was even more impossible for her to let him go. Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen directly leaped into the sky. His eyes were blood-red. His furious aura shook the heavens and the earth as he charged toward the Imperial City with a monstrous might. Bitch! Impudent! Old Monster Ing, one of the twin fiends, furiously roared. His figure moved, causing the airflow in all directions to become chaotic. He erupted with a mountain-like power that crushed toward Chu Hen. The space faintly trembled. Old Monster Ing, who had the strength of the void-piercing realm, displayed boundless true energy that covered the sky and the earth. It surged toward Chu Hen like a tidal wave. It was also at this moment that Chu Hen's entire body blossomed with a boundless silver radiance. Starlight scattered across the sky, causing the heavens and earth to lose color. The hearts of everyone present were shocked again and again. Their expressions changed again and again. This scene was extremely familiar. Arcade flash startled the heavens and earth. A heavy roar filled with boundless rage exploded above everyone's heads. In a split second, Chu Hen fiercely turned into a stream of silver light and shot out explosively. The silver stream of light shone brilliantly and dragged out a majestic air wave and light shadow in the air. The astonishing power and might shook the heavens and shook the earth. The silver meteor streaked across the sky. It was extremely fast and powerful. Compared to the move that Huang Fuliang had used in the Heaven Rankings battle, Chu Hen's aura was many times stronger. Boom! An earth-shaking explosion rang out as the silver meteor that Chu Hen had turned into collided with the power released by Old Monster Ing. An incomparably violent explosion instantly exploded in the sky, and a boundless aura spread out in all directions. Boundless destructive power poured out in all directions. It was like a meteorite that descended from the sky. It was unstoppable and forcefully shattered Old Monster Ying's attack layer by layer. Old Monster Ying's expression changed greatly. Then, with another loud bang, the silver meteor's power solidly hit his body. The space violently trembled. A vigorous wave of qi spread out in the sky. Old Monster Ing directly spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Oh my God! How is this possible? He heavily injured a peak void-piercing realm expert with a cultivation of the 9th level of the core transformation realm? The shocking scene in front of everyone's eyes almost exploded. Buzz. In the next instant, the resplendent silver holy radiance rapidly retracted. Chu Hen, who was enveloped within the black and purple light, had blood-red eyes. He swept up killing intent that soared to the heavens and once again charged towards the majestic palace gates and city walls. At the same time, Old Monster Hu of the Evil Star Duo also flew up. Buzz. Mighty and vigorous true origin energy was released from his body. Endless true origin energy was like a golden tide that covered the heavens and covered the earth, covering the heavens, roar. Along with an incomparably ferocious roar of a tiger, the golden radiance that lingered around Old Monster, whose body instantly transformed into a huge, ferocious tiger's shadow. The terrifying aura of an ancient ferocious beast caused many people to be unable to move. This old monster who had an imposing manner as if he wanted to kill Chu Hen on the spot. However, just at this time, a huge black wave that was like a stormy sea erupted from behind Chu Hen. Rays of black light rapidly gathered towards Chu Hen's palm. Whoosh! A cold and domineering black saber appeared in Chu Hen's hand. He raised the limitless Fang high, and a domineering black saber light rushed into the sky. The surging murderous aura poured down from the sky. Limitless demonic slash. Boom! After the silver meteor had caused the world to tremble with fear, another violent riot that caused one's heart to tremble with fear filled the world. The domineering black saber light fiercely chopped the ferocious tiger shadow. Chu Hen's killing intent soared to the sky, and he was like an unparalleled demon that had killed an ancient ferocious beast. The world shook and the sky was restless. The violent shock waves caused the ground to tremble incessantly. Scarlet blood continuously flowed from the corners of Chu Hen's mouth. Even so, his hands that were tightly holding the limitless Fang did not loosen even a little bit. Then, the demonic purple light outside Chu Hen's body surged. The boundless anger pulsing in his eyes flickered with a demonic purple light. In the depths of the purple pupils, 3 black dots formed a tripod, emitting a violent and powerful aura. When Old Monster who saw Chu Hen's mysterious demonic pupils, his mind suddenly trembled, and his consciousness blurred for a moment. In the next second, the black light revolving around the limitless Fang rose like a scorching flame. Accompanying it was a dense purple light and a resplendent silver starlight. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the heaven-shaking saber light chopped apart the massive tiger shadow and chopped down on Old Monster whose body. Bang! A black halo spread out like ripples on the surface of the water. Bright flowers of blood bloomed in the sky. This was a blade formed from the power of primal chaos, the power of the demonic pupil, and the power of the 7 stars. It carried a destructive chi as it chopped down on Old Monster whose body. Accompanied by an extremely shrill scream, a blade wound so deep that bone could be seen slashed down from Old Monster whose chest. Blood sprayed into the blue sky, and his organs ruptured. Old Monster who was both shocked and furious. He had never imagined that a trifling Chu Hen would have the ability to injure him. The appearance of this scene caused countless people to be terrified to the point their faces turned ashen, and they trembled with fear. Protect the Divine Empress! All the Imperial Army guards panicked. At this moment, the Divine Empress had completely lost her previous solemn and cold arrogance. Her usual cold and aloof expression was nowhere to be seen. Under the protection of the guards, she hurriedly retreated to the rear. However, at this moment Chu Hen, who was emitting a monstrous killing aura, was like a bloodthirsty azura. A dense malevolence flashed across his incomparably chilling eyes. He did not bother about Old Demon who as his furious gaze directly shot towards the Saint Empress. Old slut, pay with your life for my Uncle Jean's. The black saber rose and spat out a powerful light. Without any regard for his own safety, Chu Hen faced the fierce attacks of the Imperial Army Guards and charged towards the Imperial city walls, allowing the attacks to cover the sky and land on his body. Chu Hen, don't. Huang Fu Qing's beautiful face paled as deep shock surfaced in her beautiful eyes. However, Chu Hen did not care about it in the slightest. His blood-filled eyes were as cruel and merciless as a wild beast. Raising his limitless tooth, he slashed out a black blade aura towards the panicking Divine Empress in the crowd. Bang, bang, bang! The Imperial Guards blocking the front were cleaved in half like tofu by the black blade aura. Scarlet blood splattered everywhere and shattered organs flew everywhere. The swift and fierce blade aura did not diminish in the slightest, sweeping up a thick aura of death as it slashed towards the Divine Empress. Hiss, saber light and sword shadows, blood splattered. An arm wrapped in silk and silk flew out. Chu Hen's saber had chopped off half of the Divine Empress' left shoulder. Chapter 345. Boom! This extremely shocking scene almost caused the hearts and eyeballs of everyone present to explode. Everyone's faces instantly became incomparably pale. This was definitely a scene that they had never even dreamed of before. The enraged Chu-Hen was crazily like a cruel beast. With the power of thunder, he bestowed a shocking might and forcefully chopped off the left half of the divine Empress' shoulder. Half of the shoulder that was wrapped in silk and satin was directly sent flying. The cold aura that erupted from this slash caused the hearts of countless people to tremble. It was resplendent and dazzling, and it left an indelible mark in everyone's memory. An incomparably miserable wail came from the divine Empress' mouth. The divine Empress, who was originally aloof, cold, and arrogant, and viewed the lives of others as nothing more than grass, was wailing unceasingly. She had completely lost her bearing, and she seemed like a crazy woman. His Majesty, Huang Fu-hao, was so scared that his face turned pale. He panicked and trembled as he escaped to the back under the protection of the guards. Huang Fu-qing's face was also filled with shock. Her fair and slender jade-like hands lightly covered her red lips, and her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with dense complexity and disbelief. A piercingly cold wind danced in the air. A tragic and murderous aura filled the air. Chu-Hen's ice-cold eyes revealed an incomparably cold glint, and the layers of fierce attacks from the guards on the city wall all landed on his body. Die for me, you traitor, old monster! Ing, who had suffered from Chu-Hen's shaking light flash, steadied his body and directly charged in front of Chu-Hen. He raised his hand and heavily imprinted his palm on the latter's chest. Bang! Chu-Hen, who was already covered in wounds, felt as if he was hit by a huge wave of energy. He spat out another mouthful of blood, and his entire body was sent flying from the city wall, heavily smashing into the ground. Rocks flew everywhere, and the ground cracked inch by inch. Chu-Hen's body was dragged along the ground, and a gully that was several dozen meters long was created before he finally stopped. His entire body was in a sorry state, and he was dripping with blood. Wounds of various sizes covered Chu-Hen's body. Tear this stinking brat into 1,000 pieces! Old monster! Ing shouted angrily. The Imperial Army Guards pounced at Chu-Hen like ferocious wolves. Their killing intent surged, and they were filled with both shock and anger. Not far away, Long Qingyang exploded as well, his raging murderous aura spreading in all directions. Bunch of dogs, die! Buzz! The Bone Blaze spiritual flame and the mysterious disease scarlet flame, two different kinds of domineering flames, rose like a raging tsunami, directly pouncing towards the Imperial Guards. The scorching heat waves caused the space to distort, and the flames surged violently like a mad dragon. With a series of miserable wails, dozens of Imperial Army Guards were burned to ashes on the spot. Ice Soul Snow Guide. Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes were red, and the aura she exuded was bone-chilling. She pushed out a stream of white mystic ice chi from her jade-like palm, and the mist-like cold air invaded the bodies of the Imperial Army Guards. In the next instant, all the guards who were touched by the mystic ice chi were turned into ice statues. With a gust of cold wind, all the ice statues were instantly blown into fine powder. The entire place was in chaos. Countless people gathered in the distance fled in all directions. Kill! At this moment, a few dozen people dressed like commoners but with powerful auras suddenly rushed out from the chaotic crowd, accompanied by shouts and cries of killing. Protect eldest young master, second miss, and young master Hen, Long Kuei? Long Qingyang looked at the person leading the group, his eyes filled with astonishment. Long Kuei, the guard captain of the Long family. At a glance, the dozens of people were the guards of the Flaming Rain City's general residence. Eldest young master, take second miss and young master Hen away. Long Kuei cut down several Imperial Army Guards with a single slash, then led the crowd to surround Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and Chu-Hen in the middle, and quickly led them away. Unforeseen events happened one after another. Taking advantage of the chaotic scene in front of them, the members of the Heavenly Star Martial House took advantage of this opportunity to secretly obstruct the Imperial Guards. Coupled with the shocking events that had just happened, the Imperial Army Guards were still in a state of shock. They could only watch helplessly as the Long family led Chu Hen and the rest out of the encirclement, and quickly left. I won't let you leave, you can't escape. The Saint Empress was like a crazy woman, her hair disheveled as she screamed on the city walls. Then, she took out a strange jade talisman and crushed it with her remaining right hand. Imperial Ancestor, the dynasty is in trouble, what? The Saint Empress spat out a few words that bordered on madness, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Crack! The clear cracking sound was unmistakable as the jade talisman in the Saint Empress's hand exploded into ice shards that scattered across the sky. Clang! An earth-shattering bolt of lightning exploded in the sky above the imperial city. In the next moment, a terrifying and powerful aura suddenly erupted from the rear of the palace. Thick dark clouds covered the sky, gathering above the imperial palace and violently churning. The sky darkened, and the sun and moon lost their light. Raging cold winds howled wantonly as an unshakable and terrifying aura pressed forward, filling the entire area with an endless chill. It felt as if an ancient beast that had been slumbering for a long time was about to awaken. Bzzz. Then, a resplendent silver pillar of light shot into the sky, piercing straight into the 9 heavens. Within that pillar of light, a figure with an extremely powerful aura suddenly appeared. Heavens! That is... Everyone turned pale with fright as they stared at the powerful figure that had appeared in the world. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Such a terrifying aura! Could it be that he has already broken through to the profound world realm? Imperial Ancestor? Principal Jiang of the Tensei Prefecture's lips moved slightly as he spat out 2 words with a trembling voice. He really is not dead yet. Everyone's heart trembled uneasily. The imperial family of the Sacred Star Dynasty actually hid such an old monster. After the late emperor ascended the throne, there was no news of this imperial ancestor. There was no news of him at all. Even after the late emperor passed away, and the new Emperor Huangfu Hao ascended the throne, there was no news of the imperial ancestor. For several decades, outsiders only knew that the imperial ancestor had disappeared. However, only a few members of the imperial family knew that the imperial ancestor had always been in the palace. There was only one reason why he had not shown himself for several decades, and that was the 7-star scripture. This was the true biggest secret of the Sacred Star Dynasty. At this moment, everyone in the room had completely understood. It could be said that they were suddenly enlightened. No wonder, ever since the Saint Empress came to power, none of the civil and military officials dared to say anything. Because above the Saint Empress, there was still the imperial ancestor. The Sacred Star Dynasty had always belonged to the Huangfu family. No matter how incompetent and cowardly the current Emperor Huangfu Hao was, he still sat on the dragon throne. The Saint Empress could wield power behind the scenes, but she could not proclaim herself as the emperor. The Sacred Star Dynasty could only have the surname Huangfu. Huangfu Qing's face was as pale as paper, and his eyes were filled with helplessness. Once the imperial ancestor appeared, it meant that Chu Hen would not be able to survive. Who dares to violate the prestige of the Sacred Star Dynasty? The imperial ancestor shouted sternly. His thunderous voice shook everyone's eardrums and made their blood boil. The enormous pressure was like a mountain pressing down on everyone present. Imperial ancestor, the traitor is the descendant of Long Bo. The Saint Empress directly knelt on the ground, her expression extremely miserable. Looking at the Saint Empress who had half of her shoulder cut off, the imperial ancestor's old eyes focused, and endless cold killing intent surged from between his gray eyebrows. In these years, he knew that Huangfu Hao was incompetent, so he asked the Saint Empress to help him control the court. Today, the Saint Empress had one of her shoulders cut off in front of everyone. It was simply a disgrace to the dynasty. Humph! The imperial ancestor's eyes turned cold, and his sword-like gaze directly shot towards Chu Hen's group, who had already fled several miles away. Traitors, those who violate the prestige of my imperial ancestor shall die. With that, the imperial ancestor soared into the sky, stirring up a torrential and terrifying pressure as he charged towards Chu Hen's group. Boundless and majestic pressure covered the sky and earth, crushing everything in its path. Buzz, the imperial ancestor raised his hand and raised his palm. Dazzling starlight flew out like a crescent moon, whistling with the power to sweep away an entire army. Layers upon layers of air waves trembled in the air, and the buildings in front of them were crushed into pieces by the crescent moon-shaped flying shuttle like pieces of tofu. The crescent moon flying shuttle formed by the power of the stars traversed 1,000 meters in a row and chopped towards Chu Hen and the others. "Young master, be careful!" Long Kuei thrust out several palms, sending Chu Hen, Long Qingyang, Long Xuanshuang, and a dozen other guards flying. In the next instant, boom! A violent shockwave swept out like a tsunami, sending Chu Hen, Long Qingyang, and the rest flying dozens of meters. Along with Long Kuei, more than 20 Long family guards were instantly smashed into smithereens by the terrifying starlight flying shuttle. Long Kuei Long Qingyang's eyes were red with rage. Chu Hen clenched his teeth so hard that they made cracking sounds. His qi and blood surged up and he spat out another mouthful of blood. "First, young master, let's go! Don't let the patriarch and our brothers die in vain." The other dozen guards did not hesitate. Ignoring their internal injuries, they helped the heavily injured Chu Hen up and continued to flee with Long Qingyang and Long Xuanshuang. "Humph, no one can leave today." The imperial ancestor's cold voice was filled with disdain as a majestic aura enveloped them. Subsequently, another beam of silver starlight flew over. Although the attack wasn't as strong as the previous one, it was extremely fast. However, the eyes of the Long family guards, who were in charge of covering their retreat, turned cold as determination appeared on their faces. They stopped in their tracks at the same time and turned around to face the incoming beam of starlight. They raised the spears in their hands and stabbed the tips of the spears into the soles of their feet, nailing them to the ground. "We swear to protect the Long family bloodline with our lives. Be loyal and courageous, don't look back." "No!" Long Qingyang's eyes widened in anger and shock. Boom! In an instant, the Long family guards were once again engulfed by the violent energy, turning into thousands of strands of dust that floated between heaven and earth. Chu Hen's eyes were bloodshot as he stabbed his nails into his palms. He roared angrily at the sky, his thunderous voice shaking the heavens and earth. "Old fool, if I, Chu Hen, don't destroy your sacred star empire, I'm not human." Endless anger, hatred, and resentment at this moment, they turned into boiling blood and a monstrous murderous intent. "If I don't get my revenge, I'm not human." "Humph, little b** starred, I'm afraid you won't have the chance." The imperial ancestor's gloomy face was full of disdain. With his experience, he could naturally see that Chu Hen was different. The other party's body also contained the power of 7 stars. This meant that the other party had pried into the sacred star scripture and obtained the sacred 7-star scripture. Since the other party had seen through the empire's greatest secret, the imperial ancestor agreed with the divine empress's previous actions. Whether or not Chu Hen's family was a traitor, they had to be completely eradicated. A vast amount of power was released from the imperial ancestor's body, and dazzling starlight bloomed across the heavens and earth. However, just as everyone present thought that it was impossible for Chu Hen to escape, clang! There was a deafening sound, and a bolt of purple lightning 100 feet wide descended from the heavens without any warning, striking towards the imperial ancestor with a shocking momentum. What was going on? Everyone's hearts paled in shock. The imperial ancestor frowned and changed the direction of his attack, using the powerful force that erupted to meet the purple lightning. Hiss! The two extremely destructive forces collided, and the sky exploded with an earth-shattering might. The silver starlight and the purple lightning were like fireworks that bloomed between heaven and earth. The sky above the entire imperial capital was shaking violently and restlessly. "Which expert is here?" the imperial ancestor shouted coldly, and his sharp gaze swept across the dark sky. In the gloomy clouds of the ninth heaven, a hazy purple figure seemed to be hiding behind the sky. However, the other party did not answer, and the aura that he released fluctuated between strong and weak, giving off a mysterious feeling that could not be seen through or seen through. "Humph! Could it be that you are a cowardly rat hiding your head? Since you want to meddle in this matter, then don't blame me." As soon as he finished speaking, the imperial ancestor turned into a streak of light and shot towards the ball of purple light. At the same time, he barked out, "Generals of the Sacred Star Empire, listen up! Kill the traitor!" Yes. In an instant the entire city was hunted down again. Chapter 346. Clang, a deafening clap of thunder exploded in the dusky sky. In an instant the torrential rain began to pour down unscrupulously. Soon, the wet ground began to converge into small streams that flowed happily. However, at this very moment, a dozen guards of the Long family had brought Chu Hen, Long Qingyang, and Long Xuanxuang out of the imperial city and towards an even further area. The danger was still there, and it had yet to recede. Ice-cold rain fell on Chu Hen's face, causing his bloodless face to turn even paler. Ugh! Chu Hen spat out a mouthful of blood as his blood flowed in reverse. His legs staggered and he fell powerlessly onto the ground. "Young Master Hen? Third brother!" The guards and Long Qingyang immediately stopped in their tracks and turned around to look at him. Currently, Chu Hen was already on the brink of collapse. Previously, in his rage, he had released all of the star energy in his body and detonated it. If it was a normal person, it was likely that their body would have exploded from the enormous energy in that instant. Fortunately, Chu Hen's body was far tougher than an ordinary person's thanks to the chaotic body and the flaming sun body tempering method, which allowed him to suppress the energy. However, it was also because of this that Chu Hen's internal meridians had suffered varying degrees of damage. Coupled with the fact that he had forcefully clashed head-on with the malefic star duo, Chu Hen's injuries were unimaginably severe. "Don't worry about me, go." Chu Hen's voice was deep and hoarse. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with sorrow and dryness. Regarding the death of Long Zhan, Chu Hen felt incomparably guilty in his heart. Not too long ago, Chu Hen had planned to return home with Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang. But now, the man who had been like a father to him had died for him. Chu Hen did not even know how to face Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang in the future. Long Qingyang clenched his fists tightly. His face was extremely gloomy, and his brows were filled with pain. "Are the two of you still going to waste time at a time like this?" Long Xuanxuang asked coldly. The cold rain had already drenched her clothes, and crystalline droplets constantly rolled down her beautiful cheeks. It was impossible to tell if they were tears or rainwater. "If you want Long Zhan to die in vain, then kneel here and don't move." Long Xuanxuang directly called Long Zhan by his name. She had hatred in her heart and she said that she would never forgive him. But behind this hatred, it was love that she couldn't say out loud. Long Qingyang's eyes narrowed. He knelt on the ground with both knees and kowtowed 3 times in the direction they had come. "Father, I have been unfilial. May your heroic soul bless me and avenge you." Chu Hen clenched his fists and looked up at the sky. His eyes were closed, and his voice was choked with emotion. "Today, I, Chu Hen, swear on my life that one day, I will destroy the Sacred Star Dynasty. Zhan Bo, rest in peace." Following that, Chu Hen also heavily kowtowed 3 times on the ground. Blood surged up his chest, and Chu Hen, who was on the verge of collapse, could not hold on any longer. His vision darkened, and he fell to the ground with a muffled sound. Everyone's expression changed, and they hurried over to help him up. Without another word, Long Qingyang carried Chu Hen on his back, his cold eyes flashing with a steady light. Let's go. It could be said that Long Qingyang was now the master of the Long family, and he shouldered the heavy responsibility of reviving the family. At this moment, Long Qingyang, who had always been impulsive, seemed to have matured a lot. He did not let his anger and hatred get to his head, because this was what Long Zhan had bought with his life. The steep and undulating mountain range splashed with white mist under the pouring of the rain. The rain continued to pour, and it grew heavier. This sudden rainstorm not only made it more dangerous for Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the rest to escape, it also made it more difficult for the imperial family to give chase. After all, there were lush forests and winding mountain paths a few kilometers away from the capital. The rain washed away all the footprints on the ground. But even so, Long Qingyang and the others did not dare to slack off or relax. At the top of a mountain, a tall, black-clothed figure stood quietly at the edge of the precipitous cliff. He watched the Long family's group enter a canyon from afar with a meaningful gaze. The pitter-patter of rain fell, but it was unable to wet his clothes in the slightest. A hazy mist shrouded his surroundings, making it difficult to spot him. Suddenly, the space trembled slightly, and a demonic purple light surged in the air. Then, another figure appeared out of thin air beside the black-robed man. This was a middle-aged man who looked to be between 30 to 40 years old. He was not considered handsome, but he looked very comfortable and pleasing to the eye. His gentle and refined temperament exuded from between his brows, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised in a smile that was not a smile. "What are you thinking about?" The middle-aged man smiled warmly. "I'm thinking, will they hate me?" the black-clothed man replied in a deep voice. His tone carried a hint of profoundness. "Perhaps." The middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. "They have experienced too many ups and downs in life, and too little sorrow and joy. The path to the top of the martial way has never been smooth. Since there is no place for them in the Sacred Star Empire, this is probably the best way to leave." "Is that so?" Sometimes, hatred is also an emotion that makes people grow quickly. Only by carrying hatred can we adapt to this cruel world where people eat each other. The man in black frowned slightly and said, "Hing Air's aura seems to be getting colder and colder, and his hostility is getting heavier. If this goes on, I'm afraid a heart demon will appear in him." The man smiled and put his hands behind his back. "Heart demon is not scary. What's scary is not being able to defeat it. The demon pupil Saint Physique is neither good nor evil, so the birth of heart demon is inevitable. But if he can't even defeat his heart demon, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to step into the peak of the martial way." There was a long silence. The man in black let out a deep breath and said, "Then I'll leave the rest to you. Rather than leaving it to me, it's better to leave it to them. I won't interfere with their future growth, it's all up to them. Especially Chu Hen." Clang! Chapter 347. After the heavy rain, there was a cool breeze in the air. Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the dozen or so Long family guards were exhausted, and their movement speed gradually slowed down. "Young master, rest for a while. I'll carry young master Scar." The person who spoke was a middle-aged man in his 30s. His name was Long Chu, and he had watched Long Qingyang and the rest grow up. Long Qingyang shook his head. "It's fine, I can hold on." Chu Hen, who was on Long Qingyang's back, was breathing very weakly, and his face was getting paler. "Third brother's condition is getting worse, we need to find a place to treat him as soon as possible." Thinking about how Chu Hen had cut off half of the Divine Queen's shoulder in the imperial capital, Long Qingyang felt a wave of bitterness and complicated emotions. "How much longer do we have to walk to get out of this forest?" "It'll take at least 3 days. You still need so much time?" Long Qingyang frowned. If this continued, he might not be able to hold on if he didn't receive treatment soon. "Xuanxuang, do you have any more restoration pills?" Long Xuanxuang shook her head helplessly. I only have normal restoration pills. Ordinary small rejuvenation pills had almost no effect on Chu Hen's severe injuries, and Long Qingyang and the rest would usually prepare more effective pills before going out on missions or hunting beasts. This had happened too suddenly, and they were completely caught off guard. Looks like I should always carry healing pills with me in the future. Long Qingyang muttered to himself. Young master, young mistress, it seems like the pursuers haven't caught up yet, a Long family guard who was in charge of scouting reported. Is that so? Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Long Chu said, Looks like the rain washed away our footprints. I feel that someone is secretly helping us to distract our pursuers. The guard in charge of scouting said with some uncertainty. Before he finished speaking, a white figure flashed out from behind a towering tree, accompanied by a slight tremor in the air. Everyone was shocked, and they gripped their weapons tightly. Miss Mengshang? Long Qingyang was a little surprised, but he raised his hand to tell Long Zhu and the others not to worry. The person who came was none other than Luo Mengchang, one of the 4 beauties of the imperial capital. She looked at Chu Hen, who was on Long Qingyang's back, and her eyes rippled slightly. She then took out an exquisite glass bottle and threw it at him. This is a recover pill. Let him take it. Long Qingyang reached out and took the bottle. Without any hesitation, he carefully put Chu Hen down, took out a black pill and placed it in Chu Hen's mouth. Thank you, Miss Mengchang. Long Qingyang looked back at her with gratitude. It was rare to find someone willing to help Chu Hen at a time like this. Long Xuanxuang looked at Luo Mengchang and said, Are you the one who has been helping us distract the pursuers? Yes. Luo Mengshang nodded, her red lips parting slightly. However, they will soon discover the problem. You will need to speed up. Everyone's faces darkened and their expressions turned solemn. I will try my best to buy you some time, Luo Mengchang said. Long Qingyang nodded gratefully. Thank you. I will tell Chu Hen about this when he wakes up. Be careful. Luo Mengchang did not say anything, her beautiful eyes lingering on Chu Hen for a moment. The brows of Chu Hen, who had sunk into unconsciousness, were tightly knitted together, as if he had sunk deep into a nightmare and was unable to extricate himself. After such a big thing happened, she felt a little upset in her heart. Then, Luo Mengshang moved and disappeared into the depths of the jungle. Long Qingyang did not waste any time. He once again carried Chu Hen on his back and hurriedly left with the rest. The sound of hurried footsteps on fallen leaves and twigs was especially clear. The roars of monsters could be heard from the mountains in the distance. Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the rest of the group looked unusually solemn. They all lowered their heads and hurried forward in silence. Rumble! Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Not good. Everyone's expression changed drastically. The next moment, the soil under their feet suddenly opened up, revealing a moist and fresh smell of soil. Thick tree roots extended from the ground. A giant ancient tree over 100 meters tall rose from the ground, blocking the path of Long Qingyang and the rest. Ancient tree battle physique? Long Qingyang frowned as he looked at the towering ancient tree blocking their way, his eyes filled with seriousness. As far as he knew, there were only 2 people in the capital who had the ancient tree battle physique bloodline. One was Yu Qinyu, and the other was Yu Qinyu's father, the general of the West Sea. Everyone, don't run! A deep voice rang out, accompanied by the sound of rushing wind. A tall, burly figure flashed onto one of the branches of the towering ancient tree. It was a handsome middle-aged man with an extraordinary demeanor. He wore a suit of armor and had a sharp sword hanging from his waist. His entire body exuded a biting, domineering aura, giving him the air of a general. The general of the West Sea, a famous general of the Sacred Star Empire. He looked down at the group in front of him and said, No one can escape from me. Young master, second miss, leave this to us. Hurry up and leave. Long Chu did not hesitate to stand in front of the group with the guards. Long Qingyang and Long Xuanshuang looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. The great general of the West Sea was a top powerhouse of the void-piercing realm. Even in the entire Sacred Star dynasty, he could be ranked. There was almost no difference whether he left or not. However, at this moment, another figure hurriedly chased after them. "Father, let them go, please." The crisp female voice was filled with anxiety. She had a tall figure and an elegant and refined face. Who else could it be other than Yu Qinyu? Yu Shihai frowned at his daughter's sudden appearance. "What are you doing here? Why aren't you going back immediately?" Yu Qinyu continuously shook her head. Her slightly reddened eyes held a trace of tears. "Chu Hen has helped me many times. I beg you to let them go this once. The Emperor's decree cannot be disobeyed. Since I am a subject, I cannot disobey the Emperor's decree for my own selfish reasons." Yu Shihai did not waver. Then Yu Qinyu's palm moved, and a sharp sword appeared in her hand. She stood in front of Yu Shihai and said to Long Qingyang and the rest, "Hurry up and leave. Junior sister Qinyu, go. He's my father, he won't kill me." Yu Qinyu steeled her heart to protect Chu Hen. She did not care whether the person standing in front of her was her father or not. Long Qingyang clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and hurried away with the rest. "Humph, where do you think you're going?" Yu Shihai bellowed, releasing a vigorous aura from his body. Yu Qinyu's eyes flashed coldly, and she activated her inner core with all her might, unleashing all her inner yuan. Ancient Tree Battle Form. Rumble. Chapter 348. Ancient Tree Battle Body. Rumble. Yu Qinyu shouted softly, and the true yuan in her body burst out. Countless huge dragon-like sturdy tree roots quickly drilled out of the ground and rushed towards Yu Shihai. Yu Shihai frowned and scolded in a deep voice. How dare you attack me? Chu Hen is my friend. Who cares if you are my father?" Dozens of majestic tree roots soared into the sky, directly sealing off Yu Shihai's path. Then, Yu Qinyu's body bloomed with a gentle emerald green light, and an extremely vigorous life force filled the air. Spirit Tree Trap, Voila! Accompanied by the sound of branches and leaves swaying, the strong tree roots quickly grew lush green vines. The interweaving vines were like a group of poisonous snakes coming out of their holes. In an instant they intertwined around Yu Shihai, forming a house-sized cage, trapping him inside. However, Yu Shihai was a famous expert of the Sacred Star dynasty. How could Yu Qinyu resist the powerful cultivation of the void-piercing realm? Boom! The huge power was like a torrent that broke through a dam. A dazzling green light bloomed, and the space trembled violently. The tree roots and vines that trapped Yu Shihai were smashed like tofu dregs. Yu Shihai's face was gloomy and filled with anger. Although Yu Qinyu had been willful since young, she had never dared to attack him. Now, for an outsider, and a traitor that was being hunted by a dynasty, Yu Shihai was furious. You are getting more and more daring. Wait until I take them down, then I will deal with you." After saying that, Yu Shihai stepped into the air, not intending to pay attention to the other party. However, right at this moment, Yu Qinyu placed the sharp sword in her hand on her own neck, and used it as a threat. She said, "If you dare to take a step away, I'll kill myself in front of you." Dad, you son of a bitch. Ever since I was young, you've always been in charge of everything. I clearly wanted to go to the Bright Moon Academy, but you insisted on me going to the Giant Elephant Martial House. I clearly like boys who are more delicate and pretty, but you just have to say that the man I find in the future must be as domineering and mighty as you. How many times have I said it? Don't force your ideas on me. It's said that a daughter is a father's lover in his previous life. I don't know if I was blind or something in my previous life. Why did I find a lover like you? You're such a disappointment. The more Yu Qinyu spoke, the more aggrieved she became. Tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing the pitiful look on the other party's face, Yu Shihai found it both funny and infuriating, but more than that, his heart ached. Sigh. Forget it. Yu Shihai waved his hand. I'll listen to you this time. I'll let them go this time. Yu Qinyu's heart was filled with joy, and the corners of her mouth secretly curled into a smile. This trick of injuring oneself to gain the confidence of others was really effective. However, what Yu Qinyu didn't know was that Yu Shihai wasn't the only one chasing after Chu Hen. Even if he didn't chase after Chu Hen, there was no guarantee that others wouldn't catch up to them in the gloomy forest. The movement speed of Long Qingyang and the rest gradually slowed down due to the exhaustion of the journey. It's been so long, and Yu Shihai still hasn't caught up. Looks like that lady has successfully stopped him, Long Zhu said in a low voice. Long Qingyang nodded as a look of gratitude appeared on his face. Luo Mingshang and Yu Qinyu were both Chu Hen's friends. Now it seemed that Chu Hen was quite popular with women. However, before they could heave a sigh of relief, a series of heavy footsteps sounded in the forest. Everyone's expression changed. Then, a group of fully armed Imperial guards suddenly sprang out from the forest on both sides and surrounded them. Hee, you won't be able to escape this time. Along with the complacent laughter, a fierce-looking middle-aged general walked over with a mocking smile and a ferocious glint in his eyes. Tu Xia! Long Qingyang frowned, and the rest of the Long family guards were also shocked. Tu Xia was a valiant general of the Sacred Star Empire. Although his status was not as high as Yu Shihai's, he was still quite famous. However, most people knew him for his ferocity. Tu Xia was a true beast on the battlefield. Not only was he brave and good at fighting, but he was also cruel and merciless. As long as he led a battle, there would basically be a massacre. However, the most important thing was that Tu Xia used to be General Long Bo's subordinate. Because Tu Xian had slaughtered the innocent, General Long Bo had kicked him out of his army. Unexpectedly, Tu Xia had made great achievements in another army and gained the glory he had today. This is really interesting. Tu Xia's eyes were filled with pride. Long Bo was blind and kicked me out of his army. I didn't expect that one day, his descendants would fall into my hands. What is this called? Oh right, this is retribution, ha 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 ha. Shut up! Long Chu shouted. Humph! How dare a shameless thing like you slander our old General Long Bo? Shut up? I want to see if you can still be so stubborn later. Tu Xian's playful eyes glanced over everyone. In the end, his eyes landed on Long Xuanxuang. His eyes glowed with an evil light. Today, not only am I going to kill Logan's grandson, but I am also going to taste his granddaughter. A cold light flashed in Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes as a frightening cold energy spread out from her body. Swoosh! An incomparably solid ice sword darted out like a beam of light, sweeping towards Tu Xia with a piercingly cold, murderous intent. However, Tu Xia's cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th stage of the core transformation realm, and was only one step away from the void-piercing realm. He sneered disdainfully and stretched out his right palm. A ball of powerful true essence flickered in his palm. Bang! As the two forces collided, the ice sword Shadow Long Xuanxuang released was shattered by Tu Xia. One of the 4 beauties of the imperial capital, the icy beauty, really has a personality. I am liking her more and more. Tu Xia narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, Brothers, take down these traitors and leave the little beauty alive. Let's have fun together and have fun however we want, yes? Tu Xia was a bloodthirsty and lecherous person, so the guards he brought with him were all the same. Their eyes glowed strangely as they charged at Long Qingyang and Long Xuanxuang like a pack of ferocious wolves. Suddenly, a strand of extremely dazzling sword light whistled through the air. Everyone's pupils shrank. The sharp sword light was like a stream of light that traversed the galaxy in the night. It was exceptionally bright and beautiful. The sharp sound of flesh being pierced and a brief scream rang out at the same time. In an instant, more than a dozen guards were stabbed and fell to the ground. There was a thin red line on each of their necks that was rapidly becoming thicker. Buzz! An astonishing aura swept out as a peerlessly beautiful figure appeared in front of Long Qingyang and the rest. Luo Mengchang? Tu Xia's expression turned cold as he glared at the other party. The seriousness on Long Qingyang and the rest's faces only deepened. Now that Luo Mengchang had publicly helped them, it meant that she had chosen to become enemies with the Sacred Star Empire's royal family. There was no place for her in Imperial Martial Academy. This was not what Long Qingyang hoped for. At the same time, it was not what Chu Hen wanted to see. Luo Mengchang's beautiful face was exceptionally calm. Her long sword was slanted and emitted a holy splendor. She stared coldly at Tu Xia and said, "Scram if you don't want to die." Ha 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 ha, what a joke! Tu Xia laughed disdainfully as the lecherous look on his face intensified. I have to say, I'm really lucky today. I've met 2 of the capital's 4 glamorous beauties in a row. All the luck of my life has gathered on this day, haha. All the luck of your life has indeed gathered on this day, but it's all bad luck. As soon as she finished speaking, Luo Mengchang's aura surged and a powerful sword aura rose from her body. An exquisite crescent spiritual tattoo quietly appeared between her brows. An enormous holy aura surged out from her body. Tu Xia's expression changed slightly as he sensed the powerful aura from his opponent. He quickly mobilized his inner force to attack. However, Luo Mengchang had already left her original spot. Her agile and elegant figure turned into a series of shadows in the air as a dazzling sword light pierced everyone's eyes. Hiss! A cold aura spread in all directions, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Bang! Tu Xia fell powerlessly at Luo Mengchang's feet. Endless fear and regret froze on his face as a thin red line quickly flowed out of his neck. A peak 9th level core transformation realm expert was killed with a single sword strike. Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the rest were shocked by the scene before them. No one had expected Luo Mengchang to be so powerful. She was too low-key. If Luo Mengchang had participated in the finals of the Heavenless tournament, the champion's position would have been different. Tu Xia's death caused the soldiers who had followed him to panic. However, they had been on the battlefield and their hands were stained with blood. Despite their panic, they did not retreat. Instead, they fought back and attacked the crowd. Kill! Avenge the general! Then, another powerful aura surged over. The terrifying shockwave, which was as vast as the sea, crushed down all the way, cutting off dozens of towering trees at the waist as it whizzed toward them. Long Qingyang and the rest were shocked once again. Another powerhouse of the void-piercing realm. Thank you, Brother Schleogen, for your generous rewards. Thank you for your support. Although I have no hope of getting second place on the flower ranking, my brothers have been very generous with their rewards this month, so I have no regret. In the blink of an eye, the Divine King has written 1,000,000 words. This is my 8th million words since the first book. Looking back, I've written more than 8,000,000 words. I remember that it was difficult to write an 800-word essay in high school. This feeling was both surprising and inconceivable. The plot of the book had finally begun to unfold. The outline needed to be sorted out. I don't dare to write too fast in the interim. I'll start updating the outline for my brothers after I've planned it out. Everyone knows that my character is guaranteed. *___**. Chapter 349. Another void-piercing realm expert had arrived. Everyone's expression changed. That vast and majestic aura that was as vast as the sea crushed all the way. Dozens of towering trees were instantly snapped in half. Along with a series of miserable wails, the guards brought by Tu Xian were sent flying as if they had been hit by a mountain. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, their organs ruptured, and their bones shattered. What? Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the others were all stunned. Luo Mengchang's face also showed a hint of surprise. Then, a figure with an extraordinary aura appeared in everyone's line of sight. Din Jiang? Long Qingyang raised an eyebrow and exclaimed. The nervousness on their faces faded away one after another, and some gratitude appeared on their faces. The person was the administrator of Tensei Prefecture, Jiang Chong, Dean Jiang. He looked up at Long Qingyang and the others, who were in a sorry state due to the rush, and then at the unconscious Chu Hen. He sighed helplessly. "There's no need to thank me. Let's go." It was a simple sentence, but it was like a warm current flowing through their hearts. It was common knowledge that a few years ago, the Tensei Prefecture had been suppressed by the imperial family in order to help a student. As a result, it had fallen from the top to the bottom. Now, almost the same situation had happened again. Dean Jiang had once again stepped forward, which was truly admirable. "Dean Jiang, I thank you on behalf of third brother," Long Qingyang said solemnly. "The rise of Heavenly Star is all thanks to Chu Hen. I've received his grace, and if I don't do something, I won't be able to rest easy." Dean Jiang waved his hand and did not continue speaking. Instead, he gestured for everyone to leave. After all, this was not the time for small talk. Just at this moment, a series of steady footsteps suddenly sounded in their direction. Jiang Chong and Luo Mingshang were the first to sense it, and they looked in the same direction at the same time. This time there were 3 people. All 3 of them were middle-aged men in their 30s or 40s, and they were all wearing ordinary robes. Jiang Chong's eyes narrowed. Even with his experience in the imperial capital, he didn't recognize these 3 people. However, he was certain that all 3 of them were experts, especially the green-clothed man standing in the middle. His strength was definitely not inferior to Jiang Chong's. "May I know who you are?" Jiang Chong asked in a deep voice. However, the 3 of them did not reveal any killing intent. One of them actually took out a piece of paper. There was a person's image on the paper. After a cursory glance, the person in the image was Chu Hen. "Ninth Elder, it's them," that person said to the green-robed man in the center. Seeing this, Long Qingyang's group became even more cautious, and Luo Mingshang tightened her grip on her sword. "Everyone, please don't be nervous. I'm Luo Guan. I'm here to rescue young Master Chu Hen on the orders of my young master." The green-clothed man raised his hand slightly and said calmly, "Luo Guan?" Everyone was bewildered. Long Qingyang asked, "May I ask who your master is?" "Tensei Prefecture, Mu Feng." "Mu Feng?" As soon as this was said, the image of a guy who spouted nonsense and couldn't stop talking about women appeared in everyone's minds. Although Long Qingyang was not familiar with Mu Feng, he had seen him a few times, and the impression he gave off was comparable to that of a hooligan on the street. Now, it seemed that this guy had a powerful background. "Did you really come from Mu Feng?" Jiang Chong asked cautiously. "We have no need to lie to you at a time like this." The middle-aged man called Luo Guan said, "A few days ago, we received a letter from my young master saying that a friend of his called Chu Hen was in trouble and asked us to come to his rescue. Unfortunately, the distance between the 2 places was quite long, and by the time we arrived, we had already learned that you had escaped the capital. I'm very sorry for what happened." Luo Guan then took out a letter and unfolded it in front of everyone. No one could recognize Mu Feng's handwriting, but the words were crooked, which was in line with Mu Feng's frivolous style. The contents of the letter said that they were here to rescue a friend called Chu Hen, and there was a hint of anxiety between the lines. Seeing this, the doubts in everyone's hearts dissipated. "Where are you going next?" "The 3 of us will escort you the whole way," Luo Guan said. Long Qingyang did not decline, as this was not the time to be courteous. Jiang Chong relaxed a little, as he believed that with the 3 of them's strength, it would not be difficult to help them leave the Sacred Star Empire. "There's no time to lose, you should leave quickly." "Yes." Long Qingyang nodded, then turned to Jiang Chong and Luo Mingshang with gratitude. "Jiang Chong, Miss Mingshang, thank you both." Luo Mingshang frowned slightly but said, "I'll go with you for now." "Miss Mingshang, you're not going back to the capital?" Luo Mingshang shook her head. I'm not from the Sacred Star Empire, and Mentor Red Lotus has already left, so it doesn't matter if I go or not. Red Lotus and Shilan came from the same place. When Shilan left, Red Lotus did not continue to stay in the Sacred Star Empire. However, the winds and clouds were ever-changing, and the affairs of the world were in constant. Not long after Shilan left, such a huge change happened to Chu-Hen. Without further discussion, Long Qingyang and the rest hurriedly left the place with Luo Guan, Luo Mingshang, and disappeared into the depths of the forest. Looking at the scattered corpses on the ground, Jiang Chong let out a deep breath, a strange emotion in his murky eyes. If that young man were to return, the Sacred Star Dynasty would probably undergo a drastic change. With the addition of Luo Mingshang and Luo Guan, the group moved much faster. Although there were still pursuers running out one after another along the way, Luo Guan took care of them in 2 or 3 moves. This made Long Qingyang, Long Xuanshuang, and the rest even more curious about Mu Feng's identity. Who was this unreliable guy? Day and night, the group moved further and further away from the capital of the Sacred Star Empire. After more than half a month, Chu-Hen still showed no signs of waking up. Fortunately, his breathing became more stable, and although his face was still pale, at least his signs of life were gradually recovering. Everyone's hearts, which had been hanging in suspense during this period of time, were finally able to relax a little. After a few days of not seeing any pursuers, they must have shaken off their pursuers. Luo Guan summoned a white sharp eagle as a means of transportation. If they had used the white sharp eagle before, it would have been too obvious and they would have been easily exposed. But it didn't matter now, they could use flying beast. The white sharp eagle was very fast, almost twice the average speed of the group over the past few days. In less than 10 days, the group left the border of the Sacred Star Empire and arrived at the border of the Misty Wind Empire on a precipitous cliff of a mountain. The travel-worn Luo Mingshang, Long Qingyang, Luo Guan, and the rest stood at the top of the mountain, gazing at the vast land and water in front of them. There was a river in front of them, and in the middle of the river there were many islands that looked like small islands. On the other side of the river was an undulating mountain range. The mountains and rivers were interdependent, and the islands were adjacent to each other. White water vapor lingered like a fairy mist, and a flock of egrets soared into the sky. Under the gentle sunlight, they could vaguely see the beautiful rainbow light. The scene in front of them was so beautiful it was like a paradise on earth. We've finally arrived at the Hidden Wind region. Long Chu let out a long sigh of relief. His mission was finally completed. It looks like a paradise, but it's actually filled with a murderous and sinister aura. Luo Guan's eyes narrowed as he murmured. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. Long Qingyang nodded and said, "Yes. The Hidden Wind region is the border between the Saint Star Dynasty and the Misty Wind Dynasty. The closer it is to the border, the more crooks and honest people there are. Forces from all over the world gather here." A bitter smile appeared on Long Qingyang's face when he said the word outlaw. Weren't they all fugitives now? Although the Hidden Wind region looked calm, it was actually turbulent. But for Chu-Hen, Long Qingyang, and the rest, it was a place of refuge. As the border between the Sacred Star Empire and the Misty Wind Empire, there was a treaty between the two countries. The Hidden Wind region was the border, and no one was allowed to trespass. After all, once they crossed the Hidden Wind region, they would enter the territory of the neighboring country. Therefore, even if the Sacred Star Empire knew that Chu-Hen and the rest were hiding here, they wouldn't act recklessly, at least on the surface. "Are you guys going to stay here from now on?" Luo Mingshang asked. "I think so," Long Qingyang replied. He had learned from Long Chu that when the incident happened in the capital, Long Zhan had already moved the elderly, children, women, and children of the general's residence to this place. Because no matter what the outcome was, there was no place for them in the Sacred Star Empire. Thinking of this, Long Qingyang couldn't help but blame his father. If he knew that this was a gamble, He should have chosen to fight his way out of the capital with them. That way, father and son wouldn't have to be separated by life and death. Long Qingyang let out a long sigh and looked up at the sky. From today onwards, as the eldest son, he would replace Long Zhan and become the master of the Long family. The heavy responsibility of reviving the family fell on his shoulders. Chapter 350. Long Qingyang looked up at the sky, all the emotions he had accumulated over the past few days pouring out. Even though he was filled with endless sorrow, he knew that he had to shoulder the responsibility of reviving the entire clan. In the past month, Long Qingyang seemed to have matured quite a bit. Long Xuanxuang clenched her hands into fists, her eyes glimmering with tears, but she suppressed the sorrow and buried it deep in her heart. Since you've safely arrived at the Hidden Wind region, the three of us should return, Luoguan said. Please stay for a few more days so that we can prepare some simple tea to express our gratitude, Long Chu said. There's no need to be so polite. Luo Guan declined without hesitation. This is your first time here, so we won't trouble you any further. Long Qingyang nodded and did not try to persuade them to stay. Help me thank young Master Mufeng. I, Long Qingyang, will remember this favor. If there's anything you need me for in the future, Long Qingyang will do everything in my power to help. Young Master Qingyang is too kind. It was nothing much, Luo Guan said with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. They had all observed Long Qingyang's performance on the way here. After such a major incident, it was truly rare for him to reflect on the painful experience and understand his responsibilities in such a short time. After a few words, Luo Guan and the other two left. Luo Mengchang said from the other side, I'll see you off here. Lady Mengchang. Long Qingyang glanced at the unconscious Chu Hen, who was leaning against a nearby stone wall. Third brother should wake up in another 2 or 3 days. Aren't you going to wait for him to wake up? Luo Mengchang hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she shook her head. If he asks, tell him that I've returned to Moon City. I understand, Long Qingyang replied. Long Xuanxuang pursed her red lips and said to Luo Mengchang, Thank you. Luo Mengchang nodded slightly and gave a simple response. Luo Mengchang glanced at Chu Hen, then left. About 2 hours later, Long Qingyang's group arrived at a small city called Lang City. This small city was built next to a mountain and a river. The city walls were not very tall, but they were very sturdy. In the Hidden Wind region where undercurrents were surging, Lang City could be said to be a very rare safe place. As soon as Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the rest entered the city, many people came to greet them. Eldest young master, second young miss, you're here. Where's the patriarch? Aunt Xiu, River Earl, Uncle One. At a glance, the people who were rushing over were the family members of the general's mansion in Raging Rain City. Long Qingyang's eyes felt a little hot at the sight of so many familiar faces, but he suppressed his emotions and put on a strong smile. Father will always be in our hearts. This sentence was like a bolt out of the blue to everyone in the Long family. Even though they were mentally prepared, they still couldn't suppress the outburst of grief. Many elderly people, women, and children were sobbing uncontrollably. However, Long Qingyang continued to hold it in, a smile still on his face. He raised his right hand, his voice trembling as he sobbed. Everyone, from today onwards, I, Long Qingyang, will take good care of this family. As long as I, Long Qingyang, am alive, I will not let any of you come to any harm. The Long family members were touched, but also felt their hearts ache. Everything had happened too suddenly, and Long Qingyang, a youth who was not even 20 years old, had to shoulder everything. At that moment, a team consisting of 200 to 300 people appeared behind the Long family. Most of them were in their 30s or 40s, and each of them exuded an aura of sharpness. This was the kind of temperament that only people who had experienced countless battles on the battlefield could possess. Eldest young master, these are the old subordinates that the general left behind. A tall, dark-skinned man walked up to Long Qingyang and said, This person was called Long Jin, and he was also the captain of the Long family's guards. His previous task was to escort the family's women, children, and elderly here with a few dozen guards. However, there was a reason why Long Jean had chosen the Hidden Wind region, and not other places. First, it was because of the Hidden Wind region's unique geographical location, which was located on the border between the two countries. The Sacred Star Empire did not dare to cross this border openly. There was another reason. It was because General Long Bo had once guarded the border near the Hidden Wind region. The situation in the 100 Kingdoms was rather chaotic, especially between the 6 overlord empires. It was not as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. 20 years ago, there was a period of time when the relationship between the Misty Wind Empire and the Sacred Star Empire was rather tense. At that time, General Long Bo had been sent to guard this border fortress. Later on, the relationship between the two countries gradually eased. The imperial family then summoned Long Bo back. Due to his advanced age, Long Bo was no longer fit to lead troops, so he returned to his home in Flaming Rain City alone. As for General Long Bo's old subordinates, a portion of them joined other armies, and a small portion chose to stay at the border of the Hidden Wind region. Later on, the news of General Long Bo's passing due to a relapse of his illness reached the Hidden Wind region. Moreover, because the relationship between the two countries had eased, the imperial family rarely asked about the Hidden Wind region. Slowly, some of the old subordinates retired, married and had children here, and truly integrated into the life of the Hidden Wind region. That was why many of General Long Bo's old subordinates lived in the Hidden Wind region. This was also another reason why Long Jean had sent his family members here. Even though they had not been on the battlefield for more than a decade, their sharp aura had not faded. They walked forward step by step, and each of them had a very heavy expression on their faces. At the front was a middle-aged man in his 40s with a few scars on his face. Not only did those scars not make him look sinister, but they also made him look valiant. He walked up to Long Qingyang's group, cupped his fists and knelt on one knee, shouting, "General Long Bo's left vanguard, Qi Wanli, pays his respects to young Master Qingyang. General Qi, please get up, you're making things difficult for me." Long Qingyang hurriedly stepped forward to dissuade him. However, Qi Wanli did not waver, his eyes as sharp as a tiger's. "I, Qi Wanli, have followed General Long for 25 years since I was 15, and have shed my blood on the battlefield. General Long has dedicated his life to the Sacred Star Empire, but the heavens are unfair, and the imperial family is unjust. After such cruelty, I, Qi Wanli, hereby swear that I will no longer be loyal to the Sacred Star Empire, and will protect Long Bo with my life to repay General Long Bo's kindness." Every word was powerful and incisive. The people at the back shouted in unison, "Protect Long Bo with my life to repay General Long Bo's kindness." Chapter 351. In a spacious and bright room, Chu Hen slowly opened his eyes and found himself lying on a comfortable bed. What greeted his eyes was a rather refreshing layout. A transparent glass cup was placed on a white marble table. Dozens of beautiful seashells could be seen in the pure water. Through the half-open window, he could see the azure sky outside. A cool breeze blew into the room, carrying with it a faint freshness. Creak! At that moment, the tightly shut door was pushed open. A delicate-looking girl walked in. When she saw Chu Hen sitting up, the basin of water in her hands fell to the ground. "Young Master Hen, you're awake? That's great. Lu Chu Hen softly called out the other party's name in a weak voice. He recognized the person in front of him. She was a servant girl from the Long family of Flame Rain City. "Where am I?" Chu Hen's eyes were filled with deep confusion. "Young Master Hen, we're in Lang City of the Hidden Wind region." Lu was both surprised and delighted. She hurriedly said, "Young Master Hen, I'll go find young Master Qingyang." Compared to the past, Lang City seemed a little different these days. It was livelier, and the atmosphere was much heavier than before. Young Master Qingyang, I've already sent a letter to all of General Long's old subordinates living in the Hidden Wind region yesterday. More than 80% of them are willing to join the Long army and help young Master Qingyang rebuild the Long family's reputation. Qi Wanli, the vanguard of Yuan Long Bo's old subordinates, spoke in a powerful voice. Back then, Long Bo's old subordinates had been left behind in the Hidden Wind region. 80% of them were around 800 people. This number wasn't a lot, but it was a solid backing for the entire Long family. Long Qingyang was both moved and ashamed. General Qi, I'm truly ashamed to have disturbed your lives after so many years. Young Master Qingyang, you're treating me like an outsider. Qi Wanli raised his hand slightly. His eyes were filled with determination. If the imperial family of the Sacred Star Dynasty didn't forcefully summon the old general back, how could we cower in the Hidden Wind region? There will be no war between the 6 nations. In the eyes of us brothers, there will be no more generals after Long Bo. All these years we haven't stopped reminiscing about the days when we followed the old general to conquer the East and the West, and when we were drunk on the battlefield. Unfortunately, time and tide wait for no man. The old general's departure left us with no place to develop our lofty aspirations. Perhaps this is another chance that the heavens have given us. Let us follow the general and stir up another storm. Although I, Qi Wanli, am already 40 years old, I can still hold a saber. There was no war to be fought between the 6 nations. After Long Bo, there were no more generals. Long Qingyang clenched his fists as he listened to Qi Wanli's heartfelt words, his eyes burning with passion. If grandfather knew that his former subordinates cared so much about his family, he would definitely be overjoyed in the underworld. Young Master Qingyang, let's discuss our plans for the future. Although the Hidden Wind region isn't big, it's a mixed bag of good and bad people. There are many people from all walks of life in the cities around Lang City. However, it's undeniable that the Hidden Wind region is a fertile region. If we want to establish ourselves in this region, we need to develop our own forces. Having lived here for more than 10 years, Qi Wanli was very familiar with the situation in the Hidden Wind region. There were many large factions living here, as well as many fugitives. Even a small and peaceful place like Lang City would be disturbed by people from all walks of life from time to time. If Long Qingyang wanted to restore his family, the first step was to establish a foothold in this dangerous place, and establishing his own forces was a must. In just a short month, Long Qingyang had gone from a disciple of the martial house to the head of the family. The pressure was immense, and the courage on his shoulders was immense, but he knew that no matter how great the pressure was, no matter how heavy the burden, he had to carry it. Young Master Qingyang, young Master Hen is awake. Just then, Luer hurried over. Everyone's eyes couldn't help but light up. Then, they temporarily stopped what they were doing and headed towards Chu Hen's room. However, when they arrived at the room, they found that the bed was empty, and Chu Hen was nowhere to be found. Young Master Hen? Luer panicked. Young Master Qingyang, he was here just now. I'm sorry, it's all my fault, I should have kept an eye on him. Long Qingyang shook his head and sighed softly. It's fine, he'll be fine. The peak of the mountain behind Lang City. Standing on the peak, one could see the entire Lang City in a panoramic view. This exquisite and peaceful little city was built next to a mountain and next to a river. The scenery was picturesque, and there was an indescribable sense of comfort in the gentle breeze. Chu Hen sat on a rock at the edge of the cliff. The warm sunlight shone on his pale face, making it seem almost transparent. In this 1 month's time, Chu Hen's figure had slimmed down quite a bit. His firm and resolute outline was clearly defined, as if it was carved by a carving knife. Within his handsomeness, there was a trace of fierceness. Do you want to jump? A cold voice suddenly came from behind. It was a tall and slender figure, a beautiful face, and elegant red lips with a hint of elegance. Long Xuanxuang walked to his side. Chu Hen raised his eyelids slightly, and the corners of his lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. "It seems that ever since I was young, you've always been the first to find me whenever I've disappeared." "That's right. I don't know why that is either." Long Xuanxuang sat down next to Chu Hen. The cool mountain breeze blew a strand of hair from her face, and her red lips parted slightly. "Do you think that I've always hated you? That I've treated you like an outsider?" "A little bit. I did hate you when I was young, but you just had to follow behind me every day. I was so annoyed that I wanted to beat you up a few times. But every time I got angry, I would think of something my father told me." Long Xuanxuang's beautiful eyes rippled slightly. She looked at Chu Hen's handsome side profile and said, "He told me, Xuang don't hate your little brother. Although his surname isn't Long, the heavens sent him to our family. He's the same as you and Big Brother, a precious gift from the heavens to the Long family." Chu Hen's body couldn't help but tremble, and he clenched his hands tightly together. Long Xuanxuang gently pulled Chu Hen into her embrace, and leaned her head on his shoulder. "There's no need to blame yourself, no one will blame you. Father knows that no matter what he did, it was only to protect the precious gift that the heavens gave to the Long family." At this moment, Long Xuanxuang revealed the gentleness of an older sister. The rims of Chu Hen's eyes reddened, but his face revealed a smile that he hadn't shown in a long time. He let out a long sigh, and said in a choked voice, "Second sister, do you know that I've had a question in my heart since I was young?" "What question?" "I've always thought that a cold woman like you would be like an ice cube in my arms, and that no man would dare to want you in the future." But now I know it's just as I thought. Bastard, believe it or not, I'll kick you down the cliff. I have the purple shadow wings, I won't fall to my death. Ha 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 ha. Humph, my ice-soul battle body can freeze you to tears. A hearty smile that hadn't appeared for more than a month returned to Chu Hen and Long Xuanxuang's faces. At least for now, they could only bury their longing for Long Zhan in their hearts. At this moment, on another mountain peak. Chapter 352. After a long journey, Chu Hen, Long Qingyang, Long Xuanxuang, and the rest of the Long family finally settled down in Lang City. In the following period of time, Chu Hen also learned from Long Qingyang about the plan to build his own force in the Hidden Wind region. Of course, this was not something that could be done overnight. Many things needed to be carefully thought out, and detailed preparations and planning were needed. Chu Hen was not good at this, so he still focused on cultivation. Long Qingyang seemed to know that this was not Chu Hen's forte, so he did not force him to participate. He would only ask him to be present when there were important matters to discuss. Half a month later, in a forest in a mountain range dozens of miles southwest of Lang City, an elegant and otherworldly figure was rapidly moving through the forest. A piercingly cold and majestic aura lingered around his body. He held a sharp black saber in his right hand, and a powerful saber aura filled the air. Wherever it went, the ground and the surrounding tree trunks were left with long, narrow, and deep saber patterns. Buzz. The space trembled slightly as the figure swung the saber in his hand. A dazzling saber light shot out, cutting down dozens of towering trees, and then collided with a black figure. Roar, along with a low, sorrowful howl, blood splashed in the air. The black figure immediately fell to the ground, flattening a large patch of vegetation and dragging a trail dozens of meters on the ground before coming to a stop. Then, the young figure with the black saber landed beside the black figure in a flash. The latter was a monster that was 7 to 8 meters wide and looked like a tiger. The saber wound ran from its neck all the way to its abdomen, and scarlet blood flowed out rapidly along with its life force. "The eighth one," Chu Hen murmured as he looked at the monster's corpse on the ground. His bright eyes shone with a cold light like the limitless Fong in his hand. He had come to this mountain range at daybreak this morning. He wanted to find a quiet place to cultivate, but he didn't expect that there would be so many monsters in this mountain range. Moreover, there were many ferocious beasts at the spirit beast level. He wanted to find a quiet place but to no avail, so he decided to practice his combat skills here. However, up until now, none of the spirit beasts he had encountered could withstand a single slash from Chu Hen. After more than 10 days of recuperation, Chu Hen's injuries had completely healed. His cultivation base had also reached the peak of the 9th level of the core transformation realm. Previously in the Imperial City, due to Long Zhan's death, it caused Chu Hen to lose control in his rage. Because of that, he directly released all the 7-star energy stored in his Dantian's Sea of Qi. The immense power of the stars caused his cultivation to jump 3 levels in an instant. He was only 1 step away from the void-piercing realm. As he stared at the scorching midday sun, Chu Hen let out a sigh of relief. He then took out the tiger-shaped spirit beast's beast core and said, "Forget it, let's go back." Buzz, however, at this moment, an extremely cold aura suddenly swept in this direction. Chu Hen furrowed his brows and coldly swept his gaze over. He saw that the trees in front of him were being crushed and cut down. A cold and solemn gale whistled over and a huge monster immediately rushed out, uprooting mountains and trees. This was a spirit beast that was more than 50 meters in size. Its appearance was like an ox, but it walked upright. On its huge head, a pair of scarlet eyes seemed to be spewing out substantial flames. Its dark red leather armor was unusually thick and sturdy. Its hind legs were hooves, and its forearms were claws. Its raging aura was like a small mountain. Mad devil ox beast? Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and a hint of playfulness appeared between his brows. Finally, a somewhat decent big fellow has come. This mad devil ox beast could be said to be in existence at the top of the pyramid of spirit beasts. Although it was also a spirit beast, it had the opportunity to evolve into a beast king. From the other party's aura, it could be clearly determined that this mad devil ox beast was already halfway to evolving into a beast king. It was equivalent to a human expert who was half a step into the void-piercing realm. Moo, as soon as the mad devil ox beast saw Chu Hen, it immediately pounced towards him. A scorching wave of air gushed out from its wide mouth. As soon as the surrounding vegetation came into contact with the other party's breath, it immediately withered. It was aggressive, like a mountain pressing down on him. However, there was not the slightest hint of panic on Chu Hen's face. Even his eyes did not have the slightest ripple. When this huge monster rushed in front of him, Chu Hen suddenly exploded. He leaped up and arrived in front of the other party like a flowing light. He lifted his leg and threw a heavy kick at the other party's lower jaw. Bang! With a muffled sound, the air rippled and a bright silver starlight bloomed. The mad devil ox beast, which was like a small mountain, suddenly flew out like a big sandbag. It heavily smashed into the ground, creating a huge pit. However, not only was the mad devil ox beast powerful, its defense was also very terrifying. After suffering such a powerful blow from Chu Hen, it quickly got up from the ground, as if nothing had happened. Then, it pounced towards Chu Hen again in an incomparable rage. A vast and majestic demonic energy exploded from its body. Then, it raised its huge drum-like claws and fanned out. Strong winds were created, and the air was filled with the power of rolling thunder. The mad devil ox beast's speed was extremely fast. Its paw had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Humph! Chu Hen sneered and said in a low voice, "I'll use you to practice the arcade movement technique, whoosh!" As soon as he finished speaking, a bright silver starlight bloomed from Chu Hen's body. In the next instant, he instantly flashed away from his original spot like a shooting star in the night sky. The mad devil ox beast slammed its paw heavily on the ground. Immediately, sand and stones flew everywhere, and dust flew everywhere. A huge pit appeared at the place where the other party was a second ago. The mad devil ox beast was extremely shocked and angry at Chu Hen's sudden disappearance. In an instant, a sharp silver afterimage appeared in the air in front of the mad devil ox beast. The silver afterimage seemed somewhat distorted, as if it was being viewed through water. Moo! The mad devil ox beast didn't hesitate. It opened its mouth and spat out an incomparably hot gray fireball towards Chu Hen. But immediately after, a silver light bloomed from Chu Hen's body, and he disappeared from his original spot. Then, he left a beautiful arc in the air and immediately appeared behind the mad devil ox beast. Chu Hen's movement speed was extremely fast, like a ghost in the night. Every time he flashed, he would disappear from his original position like a flash of light. The Alcade chapter in the 7-star scripture had 3 parts. The first was the Alcade star flash, the second was the Alcade slash, and the third was the Alcade movement technique. The Alcade movement technique was about using the power of the stars to explode in an instant, increasing one's speed to the maximum in a very short period of time. It looked like a twinkling star. This looked very simple, but it was not an easy thing to actually do. In particular, the control of the true origin energy had to be extremely precise. When he first started practicing, Chu Hen could at most flash twice in a row. When he reached the small success stage, he could flash more than 10 times in a row. When he reached the large success stage, he could flash 100 times in a row. Imagine flashing 100 times in the blink of an eye. In the process of fighting with someone, the enemy would probably be blinded by the dazzling light and shadows. How would they be able to distinguish between north, south, east, west, whoosh? Every time Chu Hen flashed, he had to pause for a moment before he could do it again. But even so, the mad devil ox beast was still being played around by him. The mad devil ox beast was unable to contain its anger, and it continued to unleash wave after wave of violent energy. The area within a radius of 100 meters was almost flattened, and a thick layer of soil was scraped off. But it still couldn't touch a single hair on Chu Hen's head. After a quarter of an hour had passed, the mad devil ox beast was almost exhausted. And at this moment, Chu Hen's eyes suddenly exploded with 2 piercingly cold rays of light. 2 flashes in a row, whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared from where he stood and reappeared about 5 meters in front of the mad devil ox beast. The mad devil ox beast had just raised its sharp claws and was about to claw at Chu Hen, but Chu Hen didn't stop at all. He drew a bright ray of light in the air and once again approached the mad devil ox beast. Buzz buzz, Chu Hen's right fist exploded with a domineering black light. With a loud bang, the incomparably powerful fist landed solidly on the mad devil ox beast's chest. Bang. Chapter 353. Bang. An extremely dull explosion sounded like a clap of thunder. Chu Hen's fist, which was enveloped in a dense black glow, solidly smashed into the center of the mad devil ox beast's body. The terrifying impact that was comparable to a torrent surged violently. The thick scale armor on the chest of the mad devil ox beast was directly split open. Like shattered glass, scarlet fresh blood continuously spurted out. Immediately after, the mad devil ox beast's huge body was once again sent flying. It heavily smashed into the ground, flattening a large area of rubble. Moo! The mad devil ox beast let out a low whine. Its huge red eyes were filled with fear and dread. At this moment, it finally understood that the seemingly weak human in front of it was an existence that it could not afford to offend at all. Immediately, it hurriedly crawled up from the ground, turned around, and fled. This time, it was Chu Hen's turn to be slightly startled. This fellow's defense was indeed not just for show. He had used more than 70% of his strength in that punch just now. Logically speaking, even if he was unable to kill it with a single punch, it should have been unable to get up from the ground. However, it seemed that it had only suffered some light injuries. The strength of a demonic beast's physique was indeed not something that a human could compare with. Since the mad devil ox beast was fleeing, Chu Hen naturally would not let it get away so easily. His figure immediately moved, drawing a bright and dazzling silver streak of light in the air. Like a shooting star in the dark night, he chased after it at an extremely fast speed. Sensing the dense aura of death from Chu Hen's body, the mad devil ox beast fled at an extremely fast speed. However, Chu Hen was not in a hurry. As he chased after it, he continued to practice the Alcade body technique. In the deep and bustling forest of the mountain range, Chu Hen continuously left bright and resplendent streaks of light in the air. From afar, it looked like one meteor after another flashed past. His speed was incomparably swift and violent, and his speed was extremely fast. The naked eye of an ordinary person could not keep up with Chu Hen's speed at all. Every time Chu Hen completed a flash of acceleration, before the previous streak of light had even dissipated, he had already arrived at the next location. He appeared and disappeared mysteriously, dazzling the eyes of others. As they chased each other, countless birds and beasts in the forest were startled away. Very soon, Chu Hen had actually chased him into a valley. The valley was overgrown with plants and flowers. Huge rocks were piled up like small mounds of dirt. Due to the fact that the mad devilox beast was already exhausted by Chu Hen, its speed had clearly slowed down. A faint playful smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Then, he suddenly accelerated. With a swoosh sound, a long and narrow silver light streaked across the sky. With an incomparably rapid and sharp wind breaking momentum, Chu Hen's flash directly crossed the distance of more than 200 meters. If it was just an ordinary leap of 100 or 200 meters, it was nothing for Wu Xiu. However, Chu Hen completed the movement in the blink of an eye. This kind of speed was already not inferior to a void-piercing realm expert. Chu Hen, who had immediately flashed to the front of the mad devilox beast, directly leaped above its head. He stretched out his left hand, and an extremely restless and huge power of the stars condensed and jumped in the palm of his hand. He quickly stretched out his palm and gently pressed it on the other party's huge head. In the next second, a brilliance as bright as the sun burst out from Chu Hen's palm. An incomparably tyrannical force of over 10,000 caddies came pouring down. The space trembled violently, and a vigorous energy riot spread out like water ripples. Waves of blood mist drifted down like red rain. The mad devilox beast immediately let out an incomparably miserable cry. Its huge body, which was dozens of meters wide, collapsed with a loud bang like a small mountain, heavily smashing onto the ground, causing a strong gust of wind and dust to splash up. Swish! Chu Hen descended from the sky and looked at the mad devilox beast lying in front of him. A faint smile appeared in his eyes. This big fellow's entire body was definitely a treasure. After all, it was only a tyrannical fierce beast second only to a beast king. The total value of this mad devil ox beast was at least 300,000 high-grade origin crystal stones. If it was brought to the black market or auction house, it might even double its value. And if it was a beast king level demonic beast that was equivalent to a human void-piercing realm, the worst would be worth more than 1,000,000 high-grade crystal stones. Think about it. When Chu Hen was in Flame of Rain City in the past, he only had a few mid-grade crystal stones every month. A high-grade crystal stone was equivalent to 100 mid-grade crystal stones. 1,000,000 high-grade crystal stones was equivalent to 100 mid-grade crystal stones. The difference between the past and the present could not be said to be small. Immediately, Chu Hen took out the limitless tooth, broke open the mad devilox beast's head, and took out a blood-stained beast core. This beast core was 2 times bigger than a red date. It was dark red in color, and there was an extremely pure demonic energy surging within it. If I were to sell it at the Inscription Masters Guild, this beast core should be able to sell for double the price. Chu Hen muttered to himself softly. The demonic energy contained in the mad devilox beast's beast core was extremely stable. If it was used to set up tool inscriptions during weapon refinement, the success rate of tool inscriptions would be greatly increased by introducing the energy contained in the beast core. This was what Chu Hen learned from the inherited memory left behind by the first clan leader of St. Bell City, Lei Huan. For example, when Yu De, Wen Hong, and Zhu Tong helped him repair the illusory spirit bell and inscribe the Heaven Energy Tool inscription on the bell, there were many accidents, and it was extremely tiring. Although they managed to get through it without any mishap, it also showed that there was quite a bit of risk when inscriptionists were setting up tool inscriptions. If they had used this mad Devilox Beast's beast core to assist them, most likely only Yu De and Zhu Tong would have been able to successfully set up the tool inscription. Of course, not everyone could enjoy a beast core of the mad Devilox Beast's level. Other than some spirit inscriptionists, nobody dared to provoke such a rude and unreasonable big fellow. Immediately, Chu Hen stored the mad Devilox Beast's carcass into his storage ring and was about to leave. However, at this moment, a beautiful figure suddenly ran out from a rock behind Chu Hen. "Hello, can you wait for a moment?" The crisp voice was like that of an oriole, pleasing to the ears. Chu Hen was taken aback as he turned around to look at the other party in surprise. It was a young woman who was about 18 or 19 years old. Her skin was fair, and her facial features were exquisite. She was a beautiful woman. She carried a small basket on her back and held a small hammer in her hand. Her slender fingers were stained with some mud. She seemed to be a herb gatherer who was here to collect metal materials or medicinal herbs. However, Chu Hen did not dare to treat her as an ordinary herb gatherer. She had been hiding here for such a long time, but he had not discovered her even with his strength. In addition, she was not dressed like a girl from an ordinary family at all. However, there was no malice in her eyes. Chu Hen's vigilance was reduced quite a bit. "What do you want?" Chu Hen replied indifferently. "Well, you're a pattern tattooist, right?" The woman took 2 steps forward and looked at Chu Hen with her bright eyes. Chu Hen was even more surprised. He did not release any Reiki energy wave. How did she know that he was a pattern tattooist? Without waiting for Chu Hen to say anything, the woman continued to ask, "May I ask if you're a pattern tattooist in the field of refining?" There seemed to be some anticipation in her beautiful eyes. "What do you want?" Chu Hen opened his mouth and asked, "I want to ask you for a favor, help?" Chu Hen could not help but find it funny. He suddenly met a stranger in the wilderness and said that he wanted to ask for help. Was it because the other party was not guarded or because he had a good face? "Hello, I'm Su Yu Rong. What about you?" The woman extended her dusty hand and said politely. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and said with slight surprise, "Your surname's Su? You're from the Su clan?" Today, Chu Hen had already been in Lang City for more than 20 days. He had a rough understanding of the various powers in the Hidden Wind region. 50 miles away from Lang City, there was a Hook City. The biggest power in this Hook City was the Su clan. The Su clan was a weapon-crafting aristocratic family. They passed down weapon crafting techniques from generation to generation. There were countless experts in the clan, and there were more than 10 high-level pattern tattooists. With this kind of background, they could be considered a tyrant in the Hidden Wind region, and the woman nodded and replied without hesitation, "I'm the eldest daughter of the Su clan." The surprise came one after another. The person in front of him was actually the eldest daughter of the Su clan, Su Yu Rong. Chu Hen did not seem to suspect the other party's identity. It was very simple. From the beginning, she had been hiding behind a rock. With his ability, he actually did not discover her. There were only 2 reasons for this. One was that the other party's cultivation base was stronger than his, but this did not seem possible. The other reason was that the other party had a treasure that concealed her aura. Such a treasure could be said to be priceless and hard to find. It was not something that a child of an ordinary family could possess. The other party's identity and background were most likely real. However, what puzzled Chu Hen was that the dignified eldest daughter of the Su clan would need his help. "I was born with a very keen sense of Reiki energy. Although you didn't release any Reiki energy, I can still sense the fluctuation of your energy." Su Yu Rong lifted her eyes to look at Chu Hen and repeated the question from before. Are you a pattern tattooist in the weapon crafting field? No. Chu Hen directly denied. Su Yurong's eyes quickly dimmed and revealed a hint of disappointment. I'm sorry to disturb you. Just as she smiled apologetically and was about to turn around to leave, Chu Hen spoke again. But I've set up tool tattoos before. Tool tattoos? What grade of tool tattoos? Su Yurong turned around and asked. Chapter 354. The moment she heard the words Heavenly Energy Tool marking, Su Yurong's dim eyes instantly revealed a look of astonishment. The youth in front of her, who was about the same age as her, had actually set up a heavenly energy tool marking? Any inscription master in the field of equipment refining would naturally know of this type of tool marking. The power of this type of tool marking was extremely strong, and the runes were extremely restless. If it wasn't handled well, it would easily cause the runes to backfire and heavily injure the caster, but seeing that Chu Hen's expression didn't seem to be lying in the slightest, Su Yurong hesitated for a moment, then her beautiful eyes lit up and she said, "Help me." Chu Hen smiled and said, "Before I help you, shouldn't you explain the cause and effect of the matter clearly?" Su Yurong smiled embarrassedly and continued, "Let's talk as we walk. Where to?" Hook City. In the following conversation, Chu Hen found out about the cause and effect of the matter. Su Yurong was the only daughter of the Su clan's patriarch, Su Hao, and other than Su Yurong, Su Hao had also taken in a foster son, Su Dingfeng. Since she was young, Su Yurong had revealed shocking natural talent in equipment refining. Coupled with her outstanding talent in the art of Dao markings, she had reached the level of a 6th-grade high-grade inscription master at such a young age. However, Su Yurong's foster brother, Su Dingfeng, had similarly outstanding talent. Although he was a few years older than Su Yurong, he also had the attainments of a 6th-grade high-grade inscription master. Originally, it was the Su clan's fortune to have produced these two stunning and outstanding artifact forging geniuses. But who would have thought that 2 years ago, due to an accident in Su Hao's equipment forging, the backlash from the power of the runes caused him to suffer an extremely heavy injury, and he was practically reduced to an ordinary person. The original patriarch of the family had suffered such an unforeseen event. What Su Yurong couldn't tolerate the most was that her foster brother, Su Dingfeng, actually wanted to seize the opportunity to seize the position of patriarch and take the entire Su clan for himself. With Su Dingfeng's strength alone, it was naturally difficult for him to replace the position of patriarch. However, Su Dingfeng had the support of the second elder and the third elder. In the beginning, Su Hao was still able to suppress everyone. However, in the past 2 years, Su Hao's body was deteriorating day by day, and he was no longer as majestic as before. During the family meeting, the second elder, the third elder, and many of the higher-ups of the family repeatedly requested for Su Dingfeng to be the candidate for the patriarch position. Fortunately, the great elder stood on Su Hao's side. The great elder firmly believed that Su Yurong should take over as clan leader. As a woman, Su Yurong should not have taken over the Su family's power, but she really did not wish to see Su Dingfeng, this ungrateful wolf, seize the family's hundreds of years of inheritance. In addition to Su Hao's insistence, Su Yurong had no choice but to participate in the fight for the clan leader position with Su Dingfeng. The Su family was a family of artificers, so naturally, the way to elect their patriarch was through artificers. However, Su Yurong's and Su Dingfeng's weapon forging skills were almost on par. In addition, both of them were 6th-grade high-level inscriptionists. After competing several times, it always ended in a draw. Su Dingfeng could not defeat Su Yurong, so naturally, he would not be able to convince the masses, and would not be able to take over the position of clan leader. In the end, the higher-ups of the family suddenly set up a new rule, which was that Su Dingfeng and Su Yurong would each find a helper to refine a weapon together, and the one who refined the best weapon in the end would determine the winner. Find a helper to refine a weapon? Chu Hen could not help but find it a little funny, they can really think of such an idea. Even if Su Dingfeng won against you, he would still be borrowing the strength of others. How would he be able to convince the masses? Su Yurong shook her head, and a helpless bitter smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. You don't know, to us artificers, cooperation, connections, and personal ability. These three factors are the most important. Her voice paused slightly, then Su Yurong continued, first of all, cooperation. When you're setting up a high-level tool rune, if you can't complete it by yourself, you'll need the help of other artificers. As for connections, you should be clear that, to the family, this is absolutely necessary. As for personal ability, there's no need to mention it. I see. Chu Hen nodded his head. From the looks of it, the new competition rules could be said to be reasonable and reasonable. If it was just an open and above-board competition, it wouldn't be a big deal. But that Su Dingfeng had bribed all the high-level artificers in Gogo City, and even the high-level artificers in the nearby cities had been bewitched by him. Thus, not a single person was willing to help me. The people I found were either of a lower level of attainment or were proficient in other fields. At this point, Su Yurong knew that there was no hope of turning the tables. Rather than staying at home and feeling vexed, she came alone to this mountain range to collect rare metals and materials, and used this to relax. But she never thought that she would meet Chu Hen, who had been chasing after the mad devil ox beast in the valley. Relying on her innately strong senses, she sensed the Reiki energy undulations in Chu Hen's Naiwan palace. Moreover, the undulations of this Reiki energy were at least at the level of a high-level 5th-grade artificer. Although this wasn't the most suitable partner for Su Yurong, she had no other choice. I don't need to defeat Su Dingfeng, I just need to be on par with him, Su Yurong said. Chu Hen smiled. You just don't have confidence in me. Su Yurong didn't deny it. In her opinion, the partner that Su Dingfeng had found was most likely at the same level as him, a 6th-grade artificer. While Chu Hen was only at the 5th grade, in comparison, Su Yurong wasn't particularly confident even if they were to fight to a draw. Is there a reward for helping you? Chu Hen asked indifferently. Su Yurong nodded. Of course, I don't like to owe people favors. When this matter is over, I will give you a generous reward. Chu Hen didn't say anything else. About 4 hours later, under Su Yurong's lead, Chu Hen arrived at Gogo City. This was a bustling city. The tall city gate exuded a majestic aura. The wide streets were bustling with people coming and going, and in this city, the sounds of metal and iron colliding could be heard everywhere. Most of the people in our Gogo City know how to forge, and the metal or business is the mainstream. As if noticing that it was Chu Hen's first time here, Su Yurong explained the situation of Gogo City with great interest. Out of politeness, Chu Hen listened attentively. After a while, Su Yurong brought Chu Hen to the Su family. As the #1 artificer aristocratic family in Gogo City, the Su family's entrance could be said to be unusually imposing. On both sides of the tall courtyard gate, there were stone lions over 3 meters tall squatting. The guards in front of the gate had a rather sharp aura. Just this aura alone was not inferior to the Sacred Star Dynasty's marquee residence in the capital city. First Miss. The guards at the gate bowed respectfully. Su Yurong waved her hand slightly, and then brought Chu Hen directly into the inner courtyard of the Su family. Seeing that Su Yurong had brought back an unfamiliar man, everyone in the Su family looked over in astonishment. Many of the younger generation of the family were surprised, suspicious, and somewhat disdainful. Who is that person? I don't know. I don't think I've seen this person before. He can't be the helper that first Miss invited back, right? Looks like there's definitely no hope for tomorrow. Senior Dingfeng will definitely win. Everyone was familiar with some of the geniuses in the Hidden Wind region. However, Chu Hen's face was really too unfamiliar, especially since he was too young. They reckoned that his attainments in the Dao pattern technique would not be too high. It seemed that Su Yurong was also at her wits' end, and casually brought back a person from outside. Su Yurong acted as if she did not hear the whispers of the surrounding people. She arranged a guest room in the west wing for Chu-hen. "I'll have to trouble you to stay here today. I'll ask a servant to send some food over at night." Looking at the spacious and bright bedroom, Chu-hen smiled and said, "This is the first time I've stayed in such a good room. How can you say that it's inconvenient?" "Is that so?" Su Yurong did not believe it. Although Chu-hen did not look like a wealthy person, he had an innate heroic aura. Su Yurong had personally witnessed his strength in the martial way. She had always thought that Chu-hen was a low-profile genius from some big family who came out to gain experience. Without thinking too much, Su Yurong took out a scroll and passed it to him. "There are 3 kinds of tool inscriptions here. Take a look and see if you know how to arrange them." "Yes." Chu-hen took the scroll and walked to the side of the table in the room. Then, he unfolded the scroll and laid it flat on the table. The arrangement of the 3 densely packed runes was immediately presented in front of his eyes. 9 Thunder Tool Inscription. Chu-hen only took a glance at it before he knew the name of the first tool inscription. Inscribing this tool inscription on the body of the weapon can attract the energy of thunder and lightning. The supplementary material requires an extremely precious and rare metal like the Thunder Spirit Crystal as the main supplementary material. Su Yurong's beautiful eyes lit up as she asked, "What about the second tool inscription?" Water and Fire Tool Inscription. This is a higher-grade tool inscription. When it's inscribed on a weapon, it can release the power of water and fire. Before Su Yurong could ask, Chu-hen had already looked at the last rune arrangement. He only took a glance at the first half of it before he said without hesitation, "Spiritual Tool Inscription. This is a true high-grade talisman. Its level is only slightly lower than the Heaven Energy Talisman. Weapons refined with this spiritual tool inscription can reach the ranks of ordinary spirit weapons." Su Yurong was even more surprised. He actually knew so much? It seemed like she did not find the wrong person. "What kind of tool inscription do you want to inscribe?" Chu-hen asked. Su Yurong was stunned for a moment before she replied, "You and I definitely can't inscribe the spiritual tool inscription. With Su Dingfeng's ability, he can't complete the spiritual tool inscription as well. It's very likely that he'll inscribe the ice weapon inscription tomorrow." There was a hint of nervousness in her eyes as she looked at Chu-hen. However, Chu-hen replied without hesitation. "The ice firearm rune has 300 high-grade runes and 280 mid-grade runes. If you can bear the burden of 200 high-grade runes and 100 mid-grade runes, I can help you complete it." Chapter 355. The ice firearm rune has 300 high-grade runes and 280 intermediate-grade runes. If you can bear the burden of 200 high-grade runes and 100 intermediate-grade runes, I can help you finish setting up the tool rune. A calm and indifferent sentence came out of Chu-hen's mouth lightly. Su Yurong's fine brows relaxed as she looked at him with a strange expression. Chu-hen revealed a puzzled expression. "Is there a problem?" No, Su Yurong shook her head as she was slightly surprised in her heart. Originally, according to her plan, she would be responsible for 300 high-grade runes by herself, while Chu-hen only needed to control the 280 mid-grade runes. But if that was the case, Su Yurong's pressure would be extremely great. Now that Chu-hen had replaced the 100 high-grade runes with 100 intermediate-grade runes, Su Yurong was almost 100% confident that she could complete the inscription of the ice firearm rune. Of course, the precondition was that Chu-hen didn't boast about it. Su Yurong's suspicions lessened slightly when she saw the faint calmness in Chu-hen's gaze, and she continued to ask. "Then let's discuss the division of work next." Chu-hen nodded. Although he didn't know what would happen tomorrow, he could tell from Su Yurong's serious expression that she attached great importance to the competition tomorrow. Since he'd already promised to help others, he would try his best to do it. Su Yurong stayed at Chu-hen's side until dusk before leaving. The two of them discussed the division of work properly and clarified every part of the plan. Although Chu-Hen had only set up the heavenly energy tool rune once, the knowledge and content of the Tao pattern technique that he'd mastered had already reached the level of a spirit tattoo master. If they were to really talk about the understanding of the Tao pattern technique of equipment refinement, Su Yorong was probably a few levels lower than Chu-Hen. No matter what Su Yorong said, she only had to say it once, and it was enough. At night, a servant girl of the Su family sent a sumptuous meal to Chu-Hen. After Chu-Hen finished his meal, he started to cultivate the Alcade chapter of the 7-star scripture as usual to absorb the energy of the 7 stars. Take all the food out. Patriarch, you should at least eat a little. You haven't eaten for 2 days. I told you to take it out, didn't you hear me? Along with a deep reprimand, a few maids submissively walked out of a large hall. As soon as they came out, they met Su Yorong, who had come here. Eldest miss, Su Yorong sighed softly as she looked at the frightened and aggrieved maids. Then, she took a bowl of steaming millet porridge from one of the maids and said, "All of you can leave first." "Yes, miss." Then, Su Yorong carried the millet porridge into the main hall. A thin, pale, middle-aged man who looked to be in his 50s was sitting at the top of the empty hall. However, everyone in Hook Path City knew that the Su clan's patriarch, Su Hao, was actually only around the age of 40, and because of a mistake in weapon refinement 2 years ago, he'd suffered backlash from the energy of talismans, causing him to practically become a cripple. Since then, Su Hao's temperament had changed greatly. Coupled with the recent major events that had taken place in the family, he seemed to have aged a lot. "Father, Rong-er? You're back?" Su Hao's expression eased up a lot when he saw Su Yorong. His tightly furrowed brows relaxed as well. "Father, did you lose your temper again?" Su Hao clenched his fists lightly and sighed helplessly. He said, "I just couldn't control myself." "That's right, tomorrow is the deadline for the competition. Did you find a helper?" "I found one." Su Yorong placed the millet porridge in front of him. Su Yorong's eyes lit up. "Which clan's disciple is he from?" Su Yorong shook her head. "I only know that his name is Chu-Hen. I met him by accident when I went out to collect ores today." The moment Su Hao heard this, his eyes dimmed a little. His face was filled with disappointment that could not be concealed. There was no weapon refinement clan with the surname Chu in the Hidden Wind region. Moreover, it was a random person that they met halfway. It sounded a little ridiculous. Even so, Su Hao continued to ask, "How's his attainment in the Tao inscription technique?" "A grade 5 high-grade inscription master, grade 5? Su Hao's frown deepened. "Yes. Father, that Su Dingfeng will definitely use the ice firearm inscription to refine weapons tomorrow. As long as I set up the ice firearm inscription, I won't lose. If we don't lose, we'll have a chance to protect the Su family's foundation." Su Yorong voiced out her thoughts. Alas! Su Hao let out a long sigh. A trace of self-mockery could be seen between his brows. "I can only blame myself for trusting that ingrate Su Dingfeng too much. I gave him most of the family business to manage. I didn't expect that he would be so impatient to sit in my position so soon. Father, don't worry. I definitely won't let Su Dingfeng have his way. It's really been hard on you. However, is that person called Chu-Hen reliable?" Su Yorong pursed her red lips lightly. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Although it's the first time we've met, he doesn't seem like a sinister person. Father, you don't know, but he's about the same age as me. Not only is he a grade 5 high-grade inscription master, his cultivation in the martial Tao is extremely strong. I saw him kill a mad devil ox beast with a single palm strike." However, upon hearing this, Su Hao wasn't happy. Instead, he became even more worried. He sighed in his heart. At this age, he's still focusing on the martial Tao. Then how high can his level in the Tao inscription technique be? However, Su Hao didn't want to dampen his daughter's enthusiasm. After all, he was at his wits' end. Late at night, the Su clan was completely silent. A silver beam of light that originated from the Nine Heavens galaxy descended from the sky, connecting to a room in the west wing. The resplendent light beam was like a god, like a stream of spring water cast by the Milky Way. However, not a single person was able to see this light. Even though it was dazzling in the dark night, only Chu Hen was able to sense it. Few, in the room, Chu Hen, who had just woken up from his cultivation, let out a breath of turbid air. His opened eyes flickered with a bright light. The silver beam of light that pierced through the top of his head was like an aurora. It pierced through the sky and disappeared into the vast Milky Way. Under normal circumstances, Chu Hen would cultivate until the sun rose every time before ending his cultivation. However, in recent days, the true origin energy in his body had become particularly active and restless. The origin core in his Dantian's Qi Si seemed to have an incomparably huge fluctuation of power. It was about to break through the shackles and break out of a cocoon. Chu Hen was pleasantly surprised. This was the prelude to a breakthrough. I didn't expect to perceive the boundary of the void-piercing realm so quickly. Of course, to Chu Hen, this was not something that was too surprising. When he collected the Dubhe Star Soul Pearl, the huge amount of star power that was integrated into his body was released completely in the Imperial City, causing Chu Hen to instantly soar to the peak of the 9th level of the core transformation realm. At that time, Chu Hen could be said to have forcefully broken through. In fact, a lot of the power had been released. If, at that time, Chu Hen could find a quiet and stable place to gradually absorb and refine, he believed that it would not be as simple as the peak of the 9th level. However, under the circumstances where the city was in turmoil, it was impossible to be quiet. Chu Hen stretched his arms slightly. Just as he was about to lie down and close his eyes, he subconsciously glanced at the scroll that Su Yorong had placed on the table from the corner of his eyes. Then, he lay down on the bed and closed his eyes. However, in less than 3 seconds, Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the scroll on the table again. "What's going on?" Swoosh! Chu Hen condensed his palm and released a suction force from his hand, sucking the scroll on the table into his palm. His eyes were fixed on the contents of the ice weapon rune, and his attention was locked on the last few lines of runes. Wrong. These two simple and firm words came out of Chu Hen's mouth. Wrong. It was indeed wrong. Previously, when Su Yorong was here, Chu Hen did not carefully look at the arrangement of the runes of the ice weapon rune. Now, he was surprised to find that the arrangement of the last few lines of runes was actually different from what he knew. What was going on? Was the content of the inherited memory left by clan head Lei Huan wrong? Or was Su Yorong wrong? On second thought, clan head Lei Huan was a spiritual tattooist, and the possibility of him making a mistake was very small. The reason was very simple. Since he had stored all the knowledge he had mastered in the illusionary spirit bell and passed it on to the later generations, there would definitely be no such mistake. After all, if the later generations found that the arrangement of runes was wrong, it would be a joke. What was more, the ice weapon rune was very difficult for senior tattooists to arrange. But in the eyes of spiritual tattooists, it was just a child's game. To give a very simple example, let an adult do a child's arithmetic problem. How could it be wrong? If so, wasn't it Su Yorong who was wrong? This was even more illogical. How important was tomorrow's competition to Su Yorong? Everyone knew that. How could she make such a low-level mistake? In this case, there is only one possibility. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and murmured to himself in a low voice, "There are 2 ways to arrange the ice weapon rune." As everyone knew, no matter in which field, a tattooist had extremely strict requirements for the arrangement of Tao pattern. Any wrong step in the arrangement of runes could lead to unpredictable serious consequences. Logically, there was only one way to arrange a certain rune. However, things were not completely absolute. In fact, there were many amazing and talented tattooists who could perfect the Tao pattern created by their predecessors. Moreover, there were some powerful figures with extremely high attainments who could create other arrangement of runes to achieve the same effect. Some could even surpass the original rune arrangement. Thinking of this, Chu Hen was extremely excited. Without saying anything, he began to compare the arrangement of runes left by Su Yorong with the arrangement left by clan head Lei Huan. Seriously,